Lee Jae-in. This is the sound people use to refer to the main character. For the first time, he had a name. People's lives are really complicated. They all live on the same planet, but they draw boundaries between countries and races. They give names to things in the world and assign meaning to them. The doctor who examined the results reported that Jae-in was completely healthy, but his worried mother asked why he wasn't talking after that. The doctor said that he was only 6 years old and that it was probably too early for him. The woman objected that that was not the point. He barely responds to her, even when she tries to talk to him. He didn't even cry when he was born. The man said that nevertheless, he had no physical abnormalities. He thought it was something psychological. In that case, they would have to send him somewhere else. The mother was outraged that they wanted to label her child as mentally ill. The doctor explained everything. Why not try taking him to a psychiatrist? The mother was even more outraged. What does psychiatry mean? That's a hospital for crazy people. What is he, the doctor, trying to say? That her child is crazy or something? The man tried to justify himself. That's not what he meant, he said, telling them to calm down. But the arguing between them continued. Lee Jae-in just watched the fight from the sidelines. His mother's name was Young-shil. She was stupid and ignorant. This woman lost her entire family in the war. Later, she lost her own husband. Thus, she was left completely alone with a small child. The world was too harsh and cruel for her. However, she had a bundle of cells that she had to take care of. To make ends meet, she would carry her baby on her back and sell vegetables at the local market. Young-shil once heard that children grow up well if they listen to what their elders tell them. Despite the lack of response, Young-shil constantly talked to Jae-in. She told her son that she loved him. Lee Jae-in didn't really understand what she said, but it felt warm. He didn't hate her. After all, there was one significant difference in his life. Late at night, a man was running down the street, pursued by people. He was scared because they were chasing him. There were 3 adult men who clearly had no intention of leaving him alone. The man who was running accidentally lost his balance and tripped over a rock. As a result, he fell to the ground like a sack. His pursuers finally caught up with him. Why make them run in the middle of the night? The frightened man begged the crowd, saying he wanted to live, but the one who was chasing him asked what he was talking about. How could he let a communist live? The suspect protested that he was not a communist and was telling the truth. But his pursuers, of course, did not believe him. They could talk about it later, so he should get up immediately. If he didn't stop, they would drag him back by force. Suddenly, he noticed the boy. He wasn't on the ground, but on an electricity pole. It was the main character, who was just watching what was happening below. The man couldn't understand what the hell was going on. It was just a child. Lee Jae-in, as usual, looked down on these people from above. Turning to him, the man said that it was dangerous there. He didn't understand how he had gotten up there, but he should come down. At that moment, the main characters thought it would be perfect to try it. So without thinking twice, he jumped down. During the fall, he used his frog skill. As a result, he landed on the ground very easily. The men continued to watch in confusion. How did he jump from such a height and still be okay? The boy wasn't going to just stand there. He used another power. This time it was the power of a cheetah. Lee Jae-in was about to attack the men who were standing there confusedly watching. One of the men even took out a weapon to fight back. The main character directed his power at him. It was an Argentinosaurus. The blow he dealt to the man was so powerful that it killed him instantly. The leader of the pursuers couldn't believe it. He just froze, unable to comprehend how his comrade had been killed so easily and quickly. Lee Jae-in realized that he was right. It was an ability he had never possessed before. We are talking about the creatures he had been reincarnated into all this time. The hero was born with all their abilities. He didn't understand why, and he didn't know the answer to his questions. Now only one thing was clear to him, and that was that this was the end of his long existence. This life was his last. The man stood frozen for a long time. Then he let out his anger and asked what he was. The main character simply turned toward him. Now he could finally die. Lee Jae-in just stood there casually and didn't answer, but soon he heard footsteps approaching him. It was the same enraged man who had attacked him with a punch. What was he even doing? The boy didn't resist at all and fell to the ground from the blow. The man froze, waiting to see what would happen next. Soon he saw the child begin to get up after the blow he had dealt him. Lee Jae-in was indeed in pain. If he didn't use his abilities, he was just like any other person. The man continued to watch what was happening. He saw the boy turn toward him and start snapping his fingers. This made him even angrier than before, so he attacked the little bastard again. However, his hand was not destined to achieve its goal. Soon there was a loud crunching sound, and the man felt a sharp pain. His arm felt as if someone had twisted it in the opposite direction. The man screamed in agony from the intense pain he was experiencing. At that moment, the guy used his turtle skill. He approached his enemy and immediately grabbed him by the neck. This grip was very strong, and the small hand squeezed the enemy's neck. The enemy tried to free himself from the small hand, even though it was very strong. Lee Jae-in did not let him do so, using the strength of a chimpanzee. And as long as he doesn't use that strength, he can be anyone. A moment later, several shots rang out. It turned out that one of the men had pulled out a gun and fired several times. Thanks to these shots, he was able to wound the little boy. After what happened, the boy, devastated, looked at the man who had shot him. It was the same man who had been pursued by several other men. The main character began to rapidly lose his strength and fell to the ground. He realized he had made a mistake. After what happened, the shooter threw away his weapon. He was hysterical, realizing what had happened and what he had done. So he immediately turned around and ran away in confusion. The remaining pursuer did not know what to do, whether to run after him or stay there. In the end, he left their people lying on the ground. As time passed, dawn broke. The main character was still alive. He could even move, so he raised his head and rolled onto his back. There it was again, that strange thing. It passed through his internal organs, so the guy even wondered if he was going to die. Above him at that moment was a bright and beautiful sky. His eyes began to close slowly, but they couldn't because of the beautiful sky hanging over his head. So after a short time, his body began to move, and even the wound from the gunshot gradually healed. Jae-in began to twitch in an incomprehensible manner, and soon he began to vomit. Now he could only survive thanks to the power of the sea cucumber. All of this happened because of the instinct for self-preservation. The main character thought he couldn't experience anything new, but this is really interesting. The fact that this small body has such abilities makes no sense. That's exactly what the guy thinks. On top of all this, he hears screams. It was his mother, hysterically trying to find the boy. While she was distraught, the neighbors just went about their business as usual. None of them were going to help the woman. They just chatted among themselves. She was screaming because she thought she'd lost her own son. Jae-in heard everything clearly, but he didn't react at all. Soon he noticed a bird sitting on a scarecrow. He used one of his powers and ate the bird. Everything was fine. Perhaps he wasn't very old yet, but he could hunt on his own. Therefore, there was no reason for him to stay with his mother now. Well, something popped into his head. It was what she had said, that she loved him. Jae-in simply turned away and walked off in an unknown direction, leaving his mother in hysterics, screaming in despair. 4 days had passed since the young man began his wanderings. He walked down the street, no longer as cheerful as he had been before. His body wouldn't listen to him, and his legs were giving way. So after a while he collapsed, exhausted. It was clear that he was dehydrated and his stomach was in severe pain. But could food really be such a big problem? He, on the other hand, thought he was an omnivore. But then what was the problem? Even after so many lives, he had never experienced anything like this. Perhaps death is the same for all of us, because he has no regrets, especially if this really is the end for him. But suddenly a rustling sound made his mind clear. Jae-in turned his attention back to the sound, and saw a person there. And it wasn't just any stranger, but his own mother. All this time, she had not given up searching for her son, and, like him, had been wandering around the area. Jae-in continued to stare at her blankly. His mother was overjoyed to see her own son. She immediately ran up to him and hugged him tightly. The boy thought he was going to die. His thoughts began to clear. He was hungry, and wanted to eat the food that this man had prepared. It's too noisy here. How long is she going to keep crying? She should stop and give him some food. Her Jae-in thought that this would make her stop crying and spoke in human words that he did not understand. Words that Youngshil had spoken with a smile. The boy also carelessly declared that he loved her. The woman immediately burst into tears because of this. Against the boy's intentions was the foolish and ignorant Youngshil. She was his mother. She began to cry even harder and hugged him. They stayed in each other's arms for some time. The sunset that night was incredibly beautiful. The boy even wanted to stay there longer with his mother. Until he became independent, he was going to try to live like a normal person. After some time, the man received information about what had happened. He asked if the child had really done that. He told the story of how that little child had done such a thing to him and to the others. The man who shot Jae-in confirmed all of this information, and he even managed to kill that child. The man asked, "In that case, where is the body? Why was only Detective On's body at the scene?" The suspect was confused. He said he was sure he shot him with a gun, but he wasn't sure about anything else. The detective took control of the situation, meaning he said he shot Detective On. The man objected, asking them to listen to him carefully. Why didn't they believe him? There was another wounded detective in the room. The suspect pointed out that he had seen everything. They shot the child to save him. The man simply said, "Does his partner really believe his nonsense?" It was just a tall tale, and he was taking it seriously. He was tired of it all, so he suggested they finish quickly. The suspect was terrified and begged the detective to let him go. Why is he doing this? He saw everything with his own eyes. Detective Anna was killed by the very child he had been talking about. He shot that child, even though it wasn't a child at all, but a monster. The wounded inspector thought that this man was very loud. But when he talked about the monster, it was true. The streets of the town were, as usual, restless. The main character was walking with his mother. After that day, afraid that her son would get lost, Youngshil held his hand tightly. Jae-in felt her warmth and her pleasant smile. He hated what his mother was doing for him. Therefore, it could become dangerous. A cold winter arrived. Young-sil came to school to deal with her son's bullies. These people told her that her child had been hit. But who would do that? Did the teacher tell them to do it? The teacher said confusedly that he didn't know what he was talking about. Fights are common among children. This didn't calm the woman down. It only made her angrier. Was that really what he should have told her? Why was he encouraging fighting among children? And if those children ever laid a hand on her son again, she would break their arms. As it turned out, Young-sil was only kind to her son. Several old women sat and discussed the woman's child. He doesn't talk and seems very distant. Something must be wrong with him. Suddenly, they heard someone approaching them. It was Young-sil herself who had heard the entire conversation. She was angry and told them that something was wrong with them. Had they finished their gossip? They had said something about her son, that there was something wrong with him. She thought they had gossiped enough. Why didn't they mind their own business? After all, no one had asked for their opinion. Sometime later, the Young-sil had a conversation with the country's workers. Should she really love her own country? But what had the country done for them? Her father was killed, and she was left an orphan. Her husband was killed, and she became a widow. And now it turns out that they want to kick her out of her home. She had been working here since before her child was even born. Who is this worker anyway saying such things? If they force her to leave here, she and her son will starve to death. But she can't let that happen, so they might as well just kill her. She also shouted that if they don't want her to die, they should just get out of here quietly. In reality, Young-sil was constantly fighting against the whole world, and so time passed. The main character finally got used to his human body and way of life. One day, his mother put a flower behind her ear and asked if it suited her. Wasn't his mother cute? It was then that Jae-in began to seriously consider leaving. Standing up, the woman suggested they go eat. Her hands were warm, but they were quite rough. On the way, the boy asked why they had to fight. The woman replied without hesitation that it was for his protection. The boy was not particularly impressed by her answer. Soon, the flower behind his ear flew away. Young-sil said it was getting cold, so she suggested they hurry up and eat some meat when they got back. What the boy had been afraid of actually happened. He didn't want to leave. He wanted to spend as much time as possible with Young-sil. Someone was picking the flower that the woman had left behind. He watched the mother and son closely. It was the inspector, who was happy to have finally found this monster boy. Of course, the strongest always survive. The weak become food for the strong. This is a law that applies to all living things. Every living creature knows this intuitively. However, there are deaths that the main character cannot understand. To die so that someone else can endure the heat, or so that someone else can endure the cold. To die from experiments performed on you. To die so that someone else can keep their money. To die to become someone's decoration. To die for someone else's pleasure. Jae-in was very upset. He felt sorry for them. That's why he didn't look down on those people back then. At that moment, he was in a pond looking for food. 12 years had passed since his birth. He had finally adapted to human society. Over the past couple of years, their neighborhood had changed significantly. The roads had become smoother, and the buildings were even taller. A factory had also appeared by the river in front of their house. The boy returned home. There he saw his mother lying in bed in poor condition. She had fallen ill because of the factory that had appeared in the neighborhood. All of this had happened a little earlier. While eating, the main character simply spat his food onto the table. Young-sil asked indignantly, "What's wrong? Why did you spit that out? Was there a bone in it?" The boy did it for a completely different reason. It was food that he instinctively hated. His mother said he should understand how good it was for him. Didn't she say it was hard to get? So he'd better eat it. No matter how much she tried to force her son, he simply told her coldly that he didn't want to. And that confused his mother. She was indignant and said that if he didn't want to eat it, she would give it all away. People would beg to try this food. Then the main character didn't stop his mother. It was this food, which was laced with poison, that made her sick. Jae-in now took care of her. In fact, the woman was pleased that he was doing this. The boy, as usual, was indifferent. When he got up, the woman asked if he was going to school. The boy nodded in confirmation. Young-sil smiled and told him to have a good time. Jae-in then simply left. The streets were crowded as usual. Many people were buying or selling things. Among them was Jae-in, who was selling apples. The boy thought to himself that all these people were destroying things for their own comfort. Their comfort was causing pain to others. But why should Young-sil suffer? Pushing these thoughts aside, the boy threw an apple into the basket. It was that apple that a man soon picked up. He remarked that she looked interesting and asked how much she cost. Jae-in replied that it cost 10 won. The buyer had already eaten it and thought it was expensive. Every human society has established laws to restrict people. Then the main character broke the only law that cannot be broken, and that was murder. The man who came to buy apples turned out to be the inspector. He said he had planned to come earlier, but wanted to admire them first. He wanted to see how a real monster grew. Soon, the man offered to tell him one thing. He was curious why the boy was pretending to be human. A crowd of men, who appeared to be inspectors as well, had gathered around them. Jae-in did not respond and sat silently. The man remarked that he was still not talking, so let the others grab him. As time passed, a crowd gathered. They saw the little boy being handcuffed, who looked completely carefree. The inspector asked if he was all right after that. He is still suspected of espionage, and if he's a spy, then his mother is just like him. They had already sent people after her. She's not feeling well. I wonder if he'll be able to withstand the interrogation. After all, spy investigations are conducted extremely harshly. At that moment, the man saw that this young man was emitting some kind of strange energy, so he ordered the two men to step away from him. They could die if they stayed nearby. The men were puzzled by what he was saying, but soon it became clear what had happened. The main character's foot began to press so hard against the ground that it cracked. The ground around him was destroyed, and the men were knocked off their feet. They were confused and did not understand what was happening. The inspector was only happy because of this. He was satisfied. A moment later, the main character simply ran away from there, using his tremendous speed. Those present began to talk about what had happened. He just took off and ran away. How could he move so fast, and what had happened? Then the inspector asked if they really didn't understand. This is not an ordinary child, he is a monster. The man who called him a monster underestimated him. Because in reality, Jae-in could become anything. And that's why on that very day, he became a natural disaster. The reason why humans are considered the center of the world, despite their weakness, is language. Their ability to communicate allowed humanity to create communities and civilizations much faster than other animals. Jae-in also understands their language perfectly. He never teases his own mother, but he doesn't know if that was a blessing or a curse. When a situation arose, the boy ran away as quickly as possible. Thanks to the use of the powers of different animals, he could jump over large obstacles. He could also accelerate as fast as he needed to. Thus, the boys were unable to escape from the law enforcement agency. One of the inspectors asked if he was okay. The man had seen him talking to his boss earlier. The man did not respond. His partner also thought it was strange, especially the fact that a 12-year-old boy was a spy, and also that so many people had been mobilized to catch him. He had heard that he had forced everyone to do it because of his position. The silent man replied that he knew that. His partner then asked why he had tried to stop him. That question was on his partner's mind. He remembered the boy's striking expression as he looked at them. His hands were then restrained, and he said it was because he was afraid. After some time, inspectors arrived at the house where the main character lived. One of them asked if this was the right place. The man replied that the station had given him the correct address, and that it should be here. The chief said that in that case, they had brought the woman there. The junior inspectors entered the house and asked if anyone was there. While they were trying to figure everything out and find the woman, the boy was already nearby. He landed behind the people and attracted everyone's attention. His cold gaze was once again fixed on these annoying people. The men were confused about what was happening and how he had appeared there. The chief approached the boy and asked if he lived there. Jae-in replied, nodding his head in affirmation. The inspector's partner approached him and asked if he thought Chief Kim might have made a mistake. He should just take a look at him. The chief replied that they wouldn't know until after the investigation, so he ordered his men to arrest him. He approached the main character and suggested that he join them. Naturally, the guy wasn't thrilled with the idea, so he was about to fight. But suddenly, the front door of their house swung open, drawing Jae-in's attention to himself. It turned out that it was his mother who had managed to open the door with her last ounce of strength. She didn't understand what was going on and asked the others about it. Outside, the woman saw many inspectors staring intently at her. She also saw her own son, who looked surprised for some reason. Young-shil asked her son what had happened. The man suggested that it must be his mother. She looked really sick. Then the chief said that they were just following orders, so he ordered them to arrest both of them. Then an employee approached the boy and suggested that he go with them. Young-shil asked again what was going on and how they dared to do this. Where were they taking her son? They should let him go. The only response she got was cold stares, telling her that she wouldn't get what she wanted. Young-shil realized that she had to do something and started screaming that they were trying to kidnap them. She begged someone to come and help. One of the inspectors tried to calm her down, but the woman pushed him away, telling him to get away from her immediately. She also continued to shout to those around the headquarters, who did not come to her aid. The men discussed where she got the strength to scream. She looked as if she was about to die. One of them suggested that she was pretending and might even be a spy. Jae-in just watched his mother scream. She regained her composure just as the man approached her again. He hit her on the head without ceremony and ordered her to shut up, calling her names. The main character saw his mother being hit. That was your inspector's fatal mistake. Human language can actually describe any situation. At the moment of the blow, the boy was pierced by a chill. He immediately felt it boiling inside him. And that was the critical point, because at that very moment, the main character lost his mind. In an instant, the inspectors' bodies were scattered around the area. Both the chief inspector and the other inspectors were killed. Jung-shil watched in bewilderment. In the center stood her son, surrounded by corpses and blood. She tried to address her son by name. At that moment, the boy finally came to his senses and noticed his mother. She was in tears, realizing what her own child had done. The boy realized that he had done the same thing again. The silence was broken by the sound of car brakes screeching. New inspectors arrived at the scene. Among them was Chief Inspector Kim. He was actually incredibly happy to see what had happened. Lee Jae-in also looked at him and remembered who this man was. Addressing his subordinates, the man said that he had told them the truth earlier. He had said that this boy was a real monster. The rest should not underestimate him, because they would end up like the corpses lying around. At that moment, the main character was already preparing to kill these annoying people who had arrived again. But suddenly he saw his mother running toward him. She said that she was the one who killed those people, and that they should take her away. It was actually her who did it, not her boy. Her child had done nothing wrong. She had done it all herself. The inspectors looked at the woman in bewilderment. Jung-shil, who was too weak even to cook for herself, ran around like a mad woman. Lee Jae-in didn't understand why this was happening. One day he asked her why she was fighting. His heart ached deeply at that moment. Despite everything, his mother fought for him until the very end. Now the boy understood the answer to why she was fighting. She replied that she was doing it for him. Lee Jae-in became so sad that he cried, and his heart ached. Kim continued to look on in bewilderment. Jung-shil screamed for them to take her away. Her child was not really to blame. She had done it all. The inspector noticed the main character standing behind his mother. He stood there crying like a real child. The man involuntarily drew his weapon and cocked the trigger. He aimed the gun directly at the woman. Then he brought it back toward her and prepared to shoot. The main character couldn't let that happen, and the man was well aware of this. A few moments later, a shot rang out, sending birds flying into the air. Lee Jae-in stood in front of his mother and protected her from the shot by taking it himself. He was very angry, and his expression showed that he was a real beast. These actions made the inspector laugh again. He said he knew this would happen. He then ordered his men to shoot the woman. The subordinates asked their boss if they should shoot since she wasn't resisting. Kim was outraged, calling them idiots. Didn't they understand the situation at all? Let them look at the others. They probably want to be killed like them. This is an order, so shoot them immediately. Looking at the other corpses, the subordinates bowed to their boss and began to shoot. And the main character just froze. He saw bullets flying from all the guns in an instant. The boy knew he could do it. Or rather, he had to do it. Jung-shil tried to protect her son until the very end. Lee Jae-in decided to use all the experience he had gained in every life he had lived. Using these powers, he could see all the bullets flying toward them. And thanks to his powers, he stopped the bullets with his own limbs. Soon it became clear that he had done everything right. He could have just stayed there and continued to take the bullets. One by one, they crashed into the boy's body and were destroyed. At that moment, he used the power of the armored vehicle to save himself. His mother couldn't understand what was happening. She only saw her son standing there, protecting her from the shots. Despite the agony of the weapons that had been here all this time, the guns soon fell silent. The inspectors were devastated, watching what had happened. No matter how many shots they fired, the boy remained where he was. Some parts of his body were wounded, of course, but he managed to deflect most of the bullets. Kim asked what was going on. "What are the others doing right now? This guy is still alive. Let him keep shooting." His subordinates continued to shoot, as they had been ordered to kill him immediately. Just shoot the kid if you don't want to die. As he continued to fight, Lee Jae-in thought that he really had no choice, so he would have to do it one more time. Suddenly, he saw his mother appear right in front of him. She decided to shield her son from all the bullets. Kim didn't expect this to happen. The bullets fired by the gunmen flew toward Jung-shil. Lee Jae-in didn't want this to happen, so he tried to say something to his mother, but she told him that everything was fine. And at that moment, he was shot directly in the back. Blood immediately spurted out in all directions. The woman's body fell to the ground. Lee Jae-in tried to call out to her. He saw that his mother was still alive. With her last ounce of strength, she reached out to her son and began to whisper something quietly and indistinctly. The boy remembered how she often touched his head when he was a child and told him she loved him. Now she was trying to tell her son just how much she loved him. Lee Jae-in cried with sadness. Soon his mother's hand fell, and her lifeless body told him that she was dead. She found herself in a completely different space. At first, she couldn't understand where she was. What is this? Could this be heaven? Suddenly, she looked to the side and saw her son, who was crying. The woman smiled, overjoyed to see him. She noted that he hadn't cried even when he was born. But why was he crying now? Lee Jae-in simply apologized. He was very sorry. He really didn't know what to do now. Why had he been given these abilities? It was all his fault. The boy continued to apologize to his mother, saying that if he had known it would end like this, he would never have done it. Jung-shil simply walked over to him and hugged him tightly. She told him that everything was fine and that he didn't need to worry. The birth of her son was the best thing that had ever happened to her, so she was grateful to him for that. Crying even harder, Lee Jae-in said that they would see each other soon. But the woman didn't want that, so she turned to him again. And she asked him to do her just one favor. Her words made the boy even more surprised. Right now, his dead mother was lying right next to him, and in front of him stood several armed men ready to kill him. Earlier, Young Shil had asked him to do just one favor. He should do it so that nothing else would happen and he wouldn't have to do anything else. Kim saw that the guy had stood up and was on guard, even more so now. The boy he considered a monster was emitting a strange energy. Lee Jae-in's mother had asked him to just live, and he was going to fulfill that request. Why this inspector was so obsessed with Lee Jae-in remained a mystery. There may have been many reasons, but there was only one answer. And that answer could be called pride. People are actually proud of their ability to understand the world around them, and they are also very afraid of what they do not understand. That is why the inspector tried to put an end to it. At that moment, the only thing on the boy's mind was his mother's request that he live on. But he was thinking that he couldn't coexist with people. He was truly afraid of hurting or killing another person. But his mother had abandoned him, and he wasn't going to disobey her request. So, standing in front of her body, he agreed. Lee Jae-in will live. Soon, the inspector saw something he clearly did not expect. The boy didn't attack them, but simply turned away and started running, no matter what happened, and whatever he had to do. As promised, he would live on. Thanks to his strength, the main character easily found himself on the roof of a nearby building. Finally, he just gave Chief Kim a nasty look. The man was once again overcome by a cold, penetrating fear and chills. When he came to his senses a little, he shouted at his subordinates, asking them what they were doing standing there. That guy is running away, so catch him immediately. Everyone get in the cars and follow him. He's powerless now, and this is their last chance to catch him. So we have to catch this monster no matter what it takes. The sun was slowly setting behind the horizon at that moment. The car with the inspectors raced after the little boy whom everyone considered a monster. He was running away as he had promised his own mother at sunset. These places were full of flowers, bringing back memories of his childhood with his mother. And this made the main character even sadder. After a while, his running gradually slowed down, and soon he stopped altogether. Then the car with his pursuers caught up with him. Kim didn't expect this to happen. He saw that Lee Jae-in had simply stopped and was heading toward them. As usual, the inspector got out of the car laughing and asked what had happened. Had he already had enough? Why wasn't he running anymore? The boy asked why he should run away. He couldn't do it there because you're his mother, and you were hurt. Lee Jae-in apologized to these people. They couldn't understand what he was saying. The hero explained that he was apologizing for the people he had killed before, for the people he had killed earlier, and he apologized for everyone he would kill here. Everyone must have a mother. Everyone must have that one person who loves them and whom they love. Everything was exactly the same as it had been for him. Fear instructed the inspector again, but he just smiled. He said that for a child, he was talking quite well. Lee Jae-in continued to say that he clearly understood that he had done something wrong, but it also applies to them. All these people kill without any remorse. They simply destroy and ruin everything they see for their own benefit. The inspector was outraged by what the kid said. He was about to shoot, but Kim stopped him. The boy also said that he had always wondered, why did he keep reincarnating over and over again, and why he had been given all these strange powers. And now, at last, he finally understood everything. Kim felt this terrifying energy emanating from the boy. The power was so strong that it could be seen with the naked eye. And this great power knocked all the inspectors off their feet. Lee Jae-in said that they were pathetic little people, and he was born to destroy their kind. The inspectors realized that it was very dangerous. Kim raised his head in an instant. Using the power of a frog, Lee Jae-in jumped very high into the air. For everyone present, this power was astonishing, and they froze. The boy literally soared into the sky, and a moment later he rushed back down. Kim realized that he was going to kill them, but there was nothing he could do. The main character landed where the inspectors were and destroyed them all. The bodies of the inspectors who had shot at him were scattered across the ground. Lee Jae-in, as usual, watched what had happened with a casual expression. Kim was still alive at that moment. With great effort, he managed to say that he knew and was right. This boy really should die. Monsters like him should not exist in their world. Lee Jae-in replied without hesitation that he was right. He had done everything right and should have killed him. However, he had failed, and in response, every single person in this world must feel his pain. Kim began to scream in fear, realizing that he was about to die. But his screams did not help, and soon he was killed. Night fell. The main character walked down the street carrying his dead mother in his arms. Lee Jae-in carried Young Shil and walked without stopping. Perhaps it was because he was tired, but he began to hear Young Sil's voice. A voice he would never hear again. Warm and happy memories of his mother flashed through his mind. Even the very first moment when he was born. The words he had heard dozens of times echoed in his head, and he finally responded to them. In fact, he also loved his mother. The years he had spent with his mother seemed like a moment compared to the millions of years of life. But that moment now meant more to the young man. He felt a sense of endless love that was new to him. And he also felt a sense of endless happiness. However, his mother was no longer there. The boy realized that she had died because of him. Neither life nor death had ever caused him such pain. His mother's last wish was for him to continue living. The boy was not against it. He was going to fulfill her wishes. So he continued on his way, determined to live in this world and carry on. Sometime later, it was winter in the snow-covered mountains. And in this remote natural place, there was a hunter. He sat in ambush, tracking game. The time spent here was important. It would yield his prey. The man immediately aimed his weapon at the bird that appeared before him. The pheasant only noticed the man at the last moment, but it was too late. Therefore, in an instant, it was killed by the weapon. The man was actually delighted. He had hit his target and had his prey. Soon, his joy turned to surprise when he saw a man. But the most surprising thing was not even that, but the fact that it was a child in such a place. The man approached him and asked how he had gotten there. It was indeed dangerous in the wild. Jae-in didn't answer him, but just looked at the dead bird. The man thought it was the first time he had ever seen a pheasant. No wonder he was surprised. The bird was large. He hadn't seen one like it in a long time. The hero asked if he was proud of it. This question confused the hunter. Jae-in had already used his power and wanted to kill him. He expected an answer from this ignorant man, but the man just kept staring at him. Then he suddenly asked where his parents were. The main character felt sad again, remembering his mother. In response to his interlocutor, he simply said that they were dead. The hunter realized that the boy's tragic story was upsetting him. Soon, he simply threw away the phase he had just been holding in his hands. Then he took off his jacket and put it on the boy. It was winter after all, and he must be cold. Why was he wearing such a short jacket? The main character was a little confused. He didn't expect such kindness from this stranger. The man suggested they go together. Jae-in was so confused that he didn't even resist. Soon they both arrived at the hunter's house. The man's mother met them on the porch. He greeted her, but didn't understand why she was standing in the cold. He told her to come inside quickly. The man also suggested that the boy wash up before eating because he smelled quite awful. A little time passed, and food was already on the table. Today they will eat tender pheasant meat. Why isn't the boy eating? Isn't he hungry? Let him eat. Jae-in sat quietly until a strange noise caught his attention. The hunter noted that the sound was indeed loud. Construction was underway on the hill next to them. He had forgotten the name of the building they were constructing, but it seemed to be Risotto. In any case, he was curious how Jae-in ended up in the mountains. The boy replied that it was simple. He was just passing by. This answer surprised his companion a little. Be that as it may, there was nothing here. And it's not the best place for a child to live. Tomorrow they would go to the village somehow. He would ask the mayor to find someone who could take care of him. After all, this boy had to go to school. Jae-in was eating casually until the man hit him on the head. The hero was confused, not understanding what had happened. The man smiled and told him to make sure he learned the rules of behavior toward elders. Time passed and night fell. There were paintings hanging in the house, which the main character studied. There he saw the whole life of this family. The hunter's father had apparently died. Now his family consisted of him and his mother. At that moment the man was asleep. His mother was also sleeping peacefully, and the boy was between them. Jae-in couldn't sleep because he couldn't. The next day arrived. Everyone was ready to leave for the village. The man thought that the clothes he had given the boy were a little too big for him, so he decided to roll them up a little to make them smaller. Now it was much better, so he suggested they leave. Finally, the hunter said goodbye to the mother and told her he would return soon. She also waved goodbye to him. The hero simply watched their interaction, remembering how he used to communicate with his mother. Setting off, they walked along the road together. Suddenly, the boy told the man that his mother was not very talkative for some reason. The man was indignant, asking if he was serious, so he did know how to talk to his elders after all. He explained that she simply couldn't talk. His mother was deaf and mute. Jae-in was a little surprised. If she couldn't hear anything, then why did he keep talking to her? His companion explained that although she couldn't hear, which was true, she understood everything. And as long as she understands his intentions, that's all that matters. This was another interesting detail of the conversation that the boy remembered. They continued on their way. Soon the weather turned bad and it started to rain. The man said that it was pouring down and looked like it would stop soon. So the little boy might get sick after all. So he suggested they go and take shelter there. The cave they were heading for was near a construction site. The hunter wondered why there was so much rain in winter. The rain gradually began to soften the soil, and the stump of a felled tree began to fall. This caused a landslide, right where the main character and the hunter were standing. Jae-in was unharmed, but the man was buried under the earth. His condition was actually very bad, but even in such a critical situation, he asked the boy if he was okay. The main character was confused and didn't know what to do. He immediately got up and ran to the man. He then immediately began to clear the debris with his bare hands. It was already too late. The man was in agony. He only asked what he should do. Jae-in asked him to hold on a little longer, saying he would pull him out right away. But in reality, it was already too late. The last thing the man thought was that this was his mother. The word mom was the last thing he said before he died. A chill ran through the main character's body. and he felt a sharp pain. The rain continued to pour down harder and harder, and the boy continued to stare at the man's body. He couldn't do anything, and that made him feel even worse. Soon he remembered the words that construction was underway on the mountain. These people called the building risotto. After some time, the hero finally pulled the man's body out from under the rubble. He laid it on his back and began to drag it away. He walked for a long time without raising his head. He only raised it when he saw someone ahead of him, but when he saw who it was, he immediately dropped it. It was this man's mother. She was worried about them, so she came to see if she was all right. But all that awaited her was disappointment and grief, because she saw that her son was dead. This was yet another tragic situation in the life of the main character. Some time passed, and the weather returned to normal. The boy sat near the house, thinking about what had happened. He remembered the situation with the inspectors when he killed everyone for his own mother. He thought that, to be honest, he was just taking out his own anger on them. It seemed to him that every single person in this world was evil and not worth living. At the moment, he is still thinking about his decision. And he is actually in doubt. The guy doesn't know what's right and what's wrong. He remembered a situation from his childhood. When his mother checked his grades, she was surprised that he was just like her. Jae-in explained that he didn't do the assignments because he didn't know how. Young-shil pointed out that he should have at least tried even if he didn't know. He won't learn if he doesn't even try. The boy was indignant, asking what he was supposed to do if he didn't know the answers. His mother didn't know what to say. Just like now, when I remember this situation, the main character knew nothing. Sometime later, the opening ceremony of the Shoma Corporation took place. Many people and reporters gathered here to open the complex. The director was praised and congratulated on the opening. Suddenly, someone caught his attention. The man asked what was going on there. "Is that a child being lifted up? This is outrageous." There were no security guards at the exit. What are they doing on such an important day, letting just anyone in here? The security guard said that he would be sent away immediately. So he immediately approached the boy and shouted that he wasn't allowed there. He wanted to tell him to come back immediately, but accidentally looked ahead. And following the boy, he saw a crowd of security guards, which consisted of corpses. The boy decided that if he didn't know anything, he should just do it. That's what his mother said. Who cares if he gets points or not? It's perfectly normal to make mistakes. The guard in front of Jae-in fell in horror. He saw the boy's bloody hands and realized that he had done it. His mother said that if he didn't know the answer correctly, he should do what he thought was right. Therefore, the main character announced that he would no longer hesitate. They would all die by his hands. The reason was simple. That was what he wanted. Jae-in believed that he needed to constantly improve himself. Constant improvement is necessary. Extinction is no easy task. However, he intends to deal with it all. After a while, the sun set. The boy was standing near the graves of the man who had been buried alive. There, he thought about the woman's death. Perhaps it was because she was shocked by her son's death. She died in her sleep a few days later. The boy was saddened by this. He decided to think more carefully about the whole situation. First, he needed to understand what powers he possessed. At the moment, he could summon the powers of all living beings, and because of that, he could become anyone. The only problem was that if he didn't actively think, he would return to being an ordinary human being. This couldn't go on. A year had passed since that event. The train driver was working his usual shift. It was a quiet day, until something on the road startled him. It was the main character, wandering around the area. He was standing directly in front of the train, waiting for the collision. The driver thought at that moment that a disaster was inevitable. It was too late to brake. There was a loud crash, and the boy's body was thrown a long way. He landed and rolled across the gravel. As soon as he could, the engineer stopped and immediately ran out of the train. What he saw behind him shocked him even more. No matter how long he looked or where he went, the boy was nowhere to be seen. The main character was fine at that moment. He was already far away. During the collision with the train, he had taken advantage of the shell's strength. He managed to keep this state in his subconscious. After that, another year passed before the next event. Jae-in learned to communicate with all living beings. Of course, this was non-verbal communication. If he had to describe it in one word, he would call it telepathy. It was much easier than he had even expected. You could say it was a developed sixth sense, although understanding animals on a basic level does help. In many ways, it is related to human nature, to this body. In fact, most living creatures on Earth generally love humans, although the guy isn't entirely sure about that. Soon, another 5 years passed. The body in which the main character found himself reached adulthood. This happened, of course, in physical terms. The guy thought it would be useful to maintain this state. That is why he used the turtle's ability. Thus, another 10 years passed. The pollution of space was still severe, and Jae-in spent all his time in the wilderness. His communication skills were not limited to living beings. He also communicated with the earth, water, and even plants. Life must exist all over this planet. The main character felt this deeply. And in fact, this planet was suffering. It was dying because of humanity. 30 years later, the main character was able to develop the abilities he had. And there was no limit to what he was capable of. On top of that, he realized that abilities could be combined. And that meant only one thing. His preparations were finally complete. And then he wondered if he should do it now. Standing on Mount Lee Jae-in, he watched the city. He knew that what he wanted to do was quite easy. He directs heat deep into the ground and creates pressure. By repeating this several times, he could cause an earthquake. It would be a great earthquake that would tear the earth apart. With his current abilities, there were 6 places around the world where he could cause an earthquake of the same magnitude. An earthquake that will split the 6 continents into pieces. More than half of them will be swallowed by raging seas. No human will survive this catastrophe. And that means the extinction of the human race. That is what will happen. As the guy himself understands, it will be really very easy, but humans won't be the only ones to perish in this catastrophe. And in any case, he is going to do it. He will actually do it, but he still has doubts. Lee Jae-in had been alone for a decade. He wondered if he should see what kind of people are out there now, but why had he seen them since the moment they were created? Still, there were a few people he remembered well, and they were wonderful people. Of course, there was his mother, and also the hunter who took him in on a snowy mountain. So Lee Jae-in stopped, realizing that he could do it whenever he wanted. So there was no need to rush into it now. People were everywhere, both in the sea and on the beach. Wherever the main character went, they were everywhere. These crowds of people wandered around the world, even if the hero tried his hardest. There was no place where people did not spread their influence. For example, take the road he is walking on right now. Just recently, it was a forest filled with the scent of acacia flowers. Now it is a gray, indifferent highway. In the end, this road forced the guy to stop again. He was too tired. That's why they're going to kill them all right now. Just as he was about to do so, his attention was drawn to a passing car. It started honking at him. The hero just wanted the noise to stop. It was a noise that wasn't part of this world. The guy got angry and used his powers again. As a result, the ground began to crumble as he caused a small earthquake. A girl was driving, and she was trying to control the car because of the trouble. But it wasn't just the road that became dangerous. A huge chunk of rock fell off the nearby cliff, and this chunk began to fall right where the girl was driving. Lee Jae-in stood there, watching what was happening without a care in the world. Soon he saw the girl who was driving, and she caught his attention very strongly, because the woman behind the wheel looked very much like his own mother. Even after so many years, the guy remembered her face clearly, so at that moment he was very confused. But when he saw the danger approaching, he came to his senses. He immediately jumped out of the car. He really wanted to help this person, so with one hand he broke a huge stone boulder. Thanks to this, he was able to save her. But the stranger who looked like his mother was confused. She closed her eyes in fear, but soon opened them. Right in front of her eyes, she saw the face of that guy. He looked at her admiringly, not understanding, but interested. Of course, the girl wasn't very scared by this. While they were looking at each other like that, another boulder fell from the mountain. It wasn't as big and fell right on the main character's head. He wasn't using his powers at the time and felt intense pain. The girl immediately hit the brakes. The guy's body rolled across the ground because she was going so fast. At that moment, he didn't understand why it had happened. After all, he was supposed to use his powers unconsciously. However, a few moments later, he realized what had actually happened. He could use his unconscious powers until he completely stopped thinking. A stranger ran up to him and tried to help. But the guy just stared at how much she looked like his mother. Soon, his consciousness became clouded, and his eyes began to close involuntarily. Lee Jae-in thought he was feeling it again. It had been a long time since he had felt this feeling, which he had experienced thousands of times before. Death. That's what he thought until he opened his eyes again. The first thought that flashed through his mind was, have I been reborn? But in the room, he saw the same girl and the doctor, although he didn't really understand where he was. Confused, he immediately got up and shouted. The doctor said he shouldn't make any sudden movements. Since he had recently undergone surgery, he would experience some pain. This made Lee Jae-in think. The woman said that they had indeed performed surgery on him, even though they had obtained consent from his guardian. This was because they had not found a match for his identity. But the doctor said that there was no need to wait, and that everything was fine now. She also asked what his name was. The guy asked again. The doctor said they really needed the information because they had no information about him. He should just tell them his name. The main character thought about it. The girls expected him to reveal some information, but the guy said that he couldn't remember any of it. The girl who looked like Young Shil heard a dialect in his speech. Suddenly, the guy remembered something. The image of his mother flashed through his mind. So he told the girls that he remembered everything. He told them his name was Lee Jae-in. It turned out that his age was unknown, and his current address was also unknown. There was no information about him, and he was suffering from amnesia. The doctor turned to the girl who had brought him in. He said that it was all very unfortunate. He hinted that she should pay his bill. 3 months passed after that incident. The girl brought him to the police station. The inspector estimated that the main character was about 25 years old. Even if they expand the search to people over 40, they won't find a single match. This man's fingerprints are not on file, so they have no idea who he is. Another man said he had also checked everything. He had not been seen on CCTV cameras. The girl realized that there was no point in staying there. But then what should she do? The inspector explained that this was the first time they had encountered such a case, and that it was very complicated. The guy doesn't remember anything except his own name, and they're not even sure if it's his real name. The doctor says he may have complete memory loss. He may even be an illegal immigrant. The girl asked again what they should do. The inspector noted that if they had a guardian, everything would be much easier. The woman understood this perfectly well, and soon she also realized that he was hinting at her. After some time, the main character was to be discharged from the hospital. There, a nurse approached Jae-in's guardian. The guy looked away. The girl was sitting next to him. He asked if she was calling her. The girl indignantly said that it was true. After that, she got up and approached the nurse. She wanted to know if she had her discharge papers. The nurse confirmed that she did. Then she was asked to fill out a form, and of course, to pay the hospital bill. Before signing the documents, the girl noticed the guy. He was just sitting there, looking at her casually as usual. So she realized that she wouldn't get anything meaningful from him. When all the formalities were completed, they left the hospital together. There, the main character asked if something was wrong. She seemed to be in a bad mood, in his opinion. The guardian gave him a dirty look. She asked him to let her repeat something. It wasn't her fault at all. The landslide was to blame. She didn't need to feel responsible or obligated to him for anything that had happened. Jae-in asked again what she was talking about. Why was she repeating the same thing over and over again? The girl approached him indignantly. She said that he looked like he was in his 20s. The younger, the better. So she wrote that he was 24. By the way, she's 34. She's a little older than him. Jae-in objected. But she said that the younger, the better. I wonder what it's like to be that old. This made the girl even more indignant. She thought he was a scoundrel. After that, she declared that in any case, since she was older, it would be honest with him. The guy agreed to it, let her do whatever she wanted. The guardian repeated indignantly that she was older than him. Then he should behave himself. Did she really have to teach him manners? In fact, the main character's supposed age was 3.5 billion years old. The girl said that they would forget about it for now and suggested they leave. Jae-in wondered where they were going. His companion said she was going to look for a job for him. He could stay in her dormitory until his memories were restored. Once he figured things out, he would leave immediately. Suddenly, the main character took her by the hand. The girl shouted angrily, asking him what he was doing. Didn't she tell him not to hold people's hands? Jae-in didn't understand why. The guardian didn't know how to respond. In the end, she told him that he simply couldn't do that without explaining why. But if he wanted to hold someone's hand, he had to ask for permission first. The boy immediately asked if he could hold her hand. This only made his guardian more upset. She asked him to try saying it with respect. Then the guy repeated the question again, but more gently. After that, the girl allowed him to take her hand. The guy liked it, and they walked forward together. It reminded him of brief childhood memories of walking with his mother. Something caught the girl's attention. She saw that the guy she was holding hands with was crying. This surprised her, so she asked him why he was crying. The guy noticed her. He hadn't even realized he was crying. In the end, he simply said that he didn't know why he was crying. Soon, the main character and his new guardian found themselves in a cafeteria. There, her friend was surprised that she was now living with this man. Would it be like this for a while? Soon, the friend started staring at the guy. This annoyed him, so he asked her what she was looking at. The girl was outraged by his behavior, and so they sat there for a while longer. Soon they moved away a little to talk. The friend told him, the guardian of the main character, that she shouldn't live with him. The girl asked what was wrong. He would stay at her place anyway. The friend thought the situation was strange. He had lost his memory, and they couldn't figure out who he was. His dialect also seemed strange. It turned out that this friend's mother lived in Gyeongsan, so she could say that he wasn't used to speaking that dialect. It sounds strange, but it's as if he's trying to imitate it. The guardian didn't understand why he was doing this. The woman didn't know why he was doing it, but she said no. First, she needed to forget everything for a moment and just use logic. He is a man she doesn't know, and she is letting him into her home like this. Has she lost her mind? The girl herself understood that her friend was right. What happened then seemed really strange. And now this guy was exhibiting some strange behavior. She looked at him as she thought about the whole situation. The guy felt her gaze and looked back at her. Then he just smiled. This made his guardian's friend feel embarrassed, because she liked him. The girl explained that it was because she felt some responsibility for it. Besides, as she already knew, she had a good intuition about things. His friend became curious about what she was feeling now. The girl explained that it felt as if he was simply harmless. Then they both looked at him again. And the girls actually thought he looked harmless. In any case, the situation worried her, but she understood that she couldn't change his mind. So she said that there was nothing she could do. Soon, the guardian told the main character that there was a small, empty room on the top floor of the cafe. and he could stay there. Lee Jae-in was a little confused. Could he really not stay with her? His friend was indignant. What kind of manners were these? But the guy simply explained that he wanted to stay with her. Smiling, Yeon-hee replied that she didn't want that. This made the guy feel sad. She didn't just dump him to be idle. They would give him a job and pay him from time to time, until he got all his memories back. Lee Jae-in wasn't thrilled about this and continued to sit there looking sad. Then the Guardian said she would visit him often, but even that didn't help him cheer up. The girl then told her friend to take care of him. Jimin was surprised. Was she really leaving already? They didn't have any visitors yet. Didn't she want to stay a little longer and chat? The girl said she had to go home before returning to the factory. She had one small thing to do. The hero asked what kind of factory it was. Jimin explained that it was where she worked. She worked at a good place called an eco-friendly industrial company. Lee Jae-in thought that he would like to work there too. Soon, Yeon-hee turned to her dog, Royce. She asked him to run to her, but the dog didn't want to listen to her, so the girl had to go after him. What if Royce ran past her and ran ahead? He ran straight to the main character, and it was surprising. The Guardian noted that it was all very strange. Her dog usually didn't go to anyone but her. At that moment, the main characters were only thinking about taking the dog home with them. And how great that was. He decided to pet this cute little creature. And at that moment, thanks to his power, he mentally touched it. The dog's power immediately transferred to the guy. This made him feel sick, and he had to cover his mouth immediately. He was, of course, flustered, and tried to pretend that everything was fine. At that moment, a large truck was passing by. The dog suddenly became angry and started barking. It was barking directly at the truck and trying to grab it. The girl tried to stop it and calm it down. She didn't understand what was wrong with it. The hero noted that he had a question about that car. Could it be one of the company's vehicles? Yeon-hee confirmed that she didn't understand what was wrong with it. In fact, a dog's sense of smell is 1,000 times better than a human's. Lee Jae-in, who had borrowed the dog's abilities, suddenly discovered something. It was an unnatural living creature, unknown even to Jae-in. It was an organism born out of the bottomless greed of humans. Even the main character, who was currently suffering from amnesia, could sense it. The creature in the car was emitting extremely strong emotions. There was even a warning sign on the voice machine telling people to handle it with care. The emotions emanating from this creature were hostility toward the human race. Soon, the Hydra was discussed at the conference. This is the Hydra of Anthozoa. It contains oncogenes that cause cancer. It is also capable of complete regeneration, even if only 1 to 200th of the organism remains. The Hydra's self-regeneration process is used in cancer research. The speaker invited the others to take a look. As they can see on the screen, one of the tentacles has been cut off, but after just 2 days, it grows back. At the moment, scientists are studying various types of proteins that can prevent its regeneration. If such cells are found, they will be able to suppress cancer cells. The audience found this information interesting. The scientist said that he had contacted one of the company's employees. They have discovered new species of Hydra. At the moment, they are studying the differences between the species. Let's take a look at what it looks like. It is called spherical. And now let's talk about boredom. Earth is perfect as a planet, and the reason lies in its harmony. Starting, of course, with plankton, and ending with humans. Every living creature has a certain set of instincts. For example, children drinking milk from their mothers, or chicks hatching from eggs. They are driven by survival instincts, not the goal of learning. Life, as well as death, is a system or cycle that creates harmony on Earth. For example, take plankton, one of the smallest creatures on planet Earth. It is the basis of all food chains and plays an important role in cloud formation. Water evaporates from the seas along with plankton. It is then directed into the atmosphere, where it becomes a cloud. Clouds, in turn, reflect solar energy and prevent the temperature on Earth from rising. From this, humanity can conclude that the sea produces half of the world's oxygen. It also sustains life around the world by regulating the climate. The sea is nothing more than a means of existence. However, despite this, people are destroying everything. The main character had been in the cafeteria the whole time. He became curious about where Yeon-hee was going. The girl replied that she was going to church. Lee Jae-in then asked Jimin if they should go there too. The girl was surprised, saying that they had worked so hard today. And anyway, where was he going to go during working hours? The guy pointed out that there were only 3 of them there and there were no customers. The girl was outraged, saying that since there were no customers, she should probably fire him. On top of that, she was a Buddhist. The guy didn't understand what they were talking about and asked her about it. Yeon-hee then asked if he belonged to any religion. Could he really not remember that? The guy didn't know what religion she was talking about. Jimin asked if he believed in anything at all. The guy said he didn't know either. Then his conversation partner thought he was simply an atheist. Lee Jae-in, in turn, didn't know what that was either. Yeon-ha explained that it was someone who believed in science rather than God. The hero declared that in that case, he was definitely a believer. The girls were surprised that he said this with such certainty. Lee Jae-in explained that he didn't want to say no. This world is too beautiful. That's what he believes. These words were completely incomprehensible to his companions. Despite losing his memory, he still knows that he existed for billions of years. He simply feels that way. This world is actually perfect. Nothing contradicts its harmony. Typhoons, hurricanes, earthquakes, tsunamis. All of these are natural disasters. But that's not enough. New forms of life appear to maintain harmony, and they have their own instinct. This is the so-called survival instinct. And there are two types of creatures that exist to destroy humans on Earth. One of them is locked up. The other has forgotten who it is. But despite this, they will soon meet. And no one knows what will happen. What could all this lead to? But that's all later. Right now, the main character was enjoying life. After a while, Jae-in came to the guy. She was surprised by the mess the guy had made. He should have at least cleaned up here. I wonder how he even lives here. Jae-in didn't care about her words at all. He just sat there silently. The girl was indignant. He should answer when someone talks to him. Then the hero agreed to do so. Jae-in asked him to stand up. Now she had a place to put the boxes. Reluctantly, the guy agreed to do it for her. He noted that there were indeed a lot of boxes. I wonder what's in them. The girl remarked that he was good at asking questions. There are books here. They used to have a cafe with a bookstore, but the customers didn't like it, so they had to bring them here. The guy can read them when he's bored. She almost forgot that he needed a haircut, so they would go to the barbershop later. These books really interested the guy. After a while, the training began. When the customers arrived, the main character greeted them. The customer asked for an Americano and gave him 10,000 won. The hero replied that he would take the money and give 7,000 won in change. The girl said that she would now prepare the coffee and bring it to the guest table. Jae-in stated that he would bring some American coffee and ask them to enjoy it. Jae-in checked how he would behave with customers. The hero asked if everything was okay. His companion replied that everything was fine and that she would give him a score of 90. The guy asked why not 100. The girl hesitated a little. She noted that something was missing. He should be more positive, smile, and he'll get all 100 points. At that moment, the cafe door swung open. The employees saw that they had customers. They were confused that someone was greeting them. Jae-in turned to them and, as his boss had instructed, smiled sweetly and greeted them. The female customers were embarrassed. He seemed very handsome to them. In the evening, as the sun was setting, Yeonha was out for a run. When she reached the cafe, she stopped abruptly because she saw something strange. There were a huge number of visitors, unlike before. This really surprised the girl. She saw the main character and how he was enjoying the money. The guy was really attractive and drew the attention of everyone around him. Yeonha didn't know what to think. After a while, it was already late. The cafe had, of course, closed by then. Inside, Jae-in was very happy. She said that today had been incredible. The customers were simply delighted by Jae-in's smile. He said that his cheeks hurt from smiling so much. His boss said it was normal and asked him to keep smiling. Then she asked her friend what she had forgotten there. She hadn't even called her. Yeonha explained that she had just gone out for a run and decided to stop by to see how things were going. Jae-in said that she had nothing to worry about. Their employee was adapting very quickly. Yeonha also said that she was in a good mood and suggested they go for a drink. Her friend declined because she couldn't. She had an appointment. Her friend said that was a shame. Suddenly, the main character announced that he would go with her. After all, he was free now. Then an awkward pause ensued between them. After a while, they went to a night cafe. It was quite noisy there, with many groups of friends drinking or just relaxing. The main character was distracted, and Yeonha tried to get his attention. She told him that his mind was preoccupied with something else. She asked if he wanted a beer, and she had ordered 2. Jae-in said he had never tried it before. It was strange that he said that. Maybe he just didn't remember. She told him to wait a moment. She would give him something amazing to try. Leaving the guy for a while, she came back with a glass of some kind of drink. And in a strange way, she offered him to try it. The guy, suspecting nothing, took the glass. He drank the contents sip by sip. Yeonha just watched him at that moment. When the guy grimaced, she asked him how it tasted, whether it was good or not. Jae-in said that the drink was very bitter. The girl objected, saying that he just didn't understand its charm. She was holding the same glass in her hands and was really enjoying its contents. She said it was actually very tasty and didn't understand why he didn't like it. The main character didn't understand and asked why she was drinking it. The girl explained that she didn't know. Perhaps because she wanted to get drunk. The guy became curious about the benefits of drunkenness. Yeonha thought about it. Then she explained that it was like a person wanted to escape from reality. If he wants to survive in this difficult world, he needs to be able to get by. But to be honest, she didn't know how to do that. After saying this, the girl simply continued drinking. Suddenly, the guy asked if she was drunk yet. The girl nodded, confirming that she was already a little tipsy. Then she said that people become softer and show their true selves. These words made the guy think. He looked at his drink, thinking about what the girl had just said, and he realized that it was all true. Alcohol makes people softer. A little more time passed, and they both left the cafe. Yeonha was drunk and feeling very good. The same could not be said for the main character. Everything around him seemed very round. He didn't understand why the world around him was spinning. The girl, enjoying herself, said that this was exactly what getting drunk meant. By the way, she needed to go in the other direction, so he should be careful on the road. Jae-in said that it was dangerous at night, so he was going to go with her. The girl was a little embarrassed, wondering where he had learned that. It turned out that the guy had been reading books in his spare time, which were in the cafe, and one of them was about manners. In the end, they continued on their way together. On the way, the girl saw something interesting that caught her attention. They were fireflies in the grass. Yeonha was surprised because she had never seen them before. She even said she had fallen in love because they were so beautiful. These words caught the boy's attention. He asked her if she really liked them. The girl replied that she did. The hero then decided to take action. He noticed a firefly on the grass. Then he used his own skill. Yeonha saw that he was doing something and didn't understand what was happening. Soon the light stopped moving. The girl was confused and couldn't believe what she was seeing. Jae-in used the power of the firefly and began to glow himself. He laughed and asked the girl how she liked it. Does she love him too now? Perhaps now he was as beautiful as the firefly. In reality, the girl didn't appreciate it. She was scared and started screaming loudly. The main characters were surprised. He didn't understand what was wrong. Frightened, Yeonha turned around and started running away. The guy was confused by her strange behavior, but he couldn't just let her go, so he ran after her. The girl thought he was strange, so she screamed for him not to come near her. Suddenly, he remembered that yesterday he had asked her to be careful because there was danger ahead. Yeonha didn't notice anything in front of her and suddenly looked ahead. At that moment, she was already at the edge of a cliff. She didn't have time to stop herself from falling. That's why her body soon fell over. And since there was nothing to support her body, she began to fall down. At that moment, she was already saying goodbye to life, thinking that she was about to die. But the main character couldn't let that happen. In the book, he had read about cheetahs, and now he used their speed and strength. As a result, he reached the same speed of more than 100 kilometers per hour and simply jumped down with Yeonha. Out of fear and a sense of hopelessness, the girl closed her eyes. But she soon opened them when she heard a noise above her. What she saw in front of her made her even more surprised. After all, the main character had jumped with her without hesitation. His gaze clearly said that he was confident in his abilities and had no intention of giving up. This made the girl wonder even more. Soon the guy got close to her body and rushed even further down. Thanks to his speed, he landed first and did it quite well. Then he was able to catch Yeonha herself. Thus, the danger was averted and the girl was alive. The guy breathed a sigh of relief. She had really scared him. I wonder if she's okay. From the look on Yeonha's face, it was clear that she was not okay. What she had gone through in the last few minutes had shaken her psyche. Sometime later, a report was given at the investigation center. This is the recently announced Hydra. Scientists call it Anthozoa. This is its main body. Even if part of it is cut off, the severed part is capable of regenerating its complete form. Among the workers was also Yeon-hee. Thus, they now have 14 reproduced Hydras. The man noted that all of them were parts of the main body that had regenerated into their complete form. But should the reproduced bodies be considered separate beings? The scientists said that was a good question. They had stumbled upon something very interesting. This sample is also better known as sulfuric acid. Such a strong acid will release heat when it comes into contact with water. However, sulfuric acid has no effect on the Hydra, although it still shows a strong reaction until it dies. Now, everyone take a close look at the others. It turns out that the main organ relays the reaction to the reproduced bodies. So, now let him answer this question. Are the reproduced bodies separate beings? At this point, their answer is that they do not know. Yeonha pointed out that they are not connected to each other in any way. She does not understand how this is possible. The scientist said that this is also a question that remains to be answered. Even then, the girls didn't like it. This Hydra made her wary and also concerned. The girl spent some more time at the research center. She told the scientist that the man was glowing. He asked if it was like a firefly. What did she mean? Perhaps she was still hungover from yesterday's drinking. Yeonha knew she was talking nonsense, so she blamed it on the alcohol. But what if it wasn't just nonsense? What if someone capable of doing that really existed? Someone faster than a car, as strong as a dinosaur and able to glow. Someone who could control other species. If something like that really existed, it wouldn't be human. It would be a subject for study. The girl was left pondering this answer. Sometime later, she found herself back in the cafe. There, she stared intently at the main character, who was casually wiping a glass. She watched him from afar, not going inside. When Jae-in saw her, he was delighted and began waving his hand. The cafe was already closed by then. Yeonha asked where Jimin was. The protagonist thought that her date yesterday had gone well. She went with you to meet him again. After these words, an awkward silence hung between them. Then the girl asked if the hero remembered what happened yesterday. He asked her again in surprise. Yun-ha was indignant, pretending not to know anything. He was glowing. And not just that. The guy understood what she was talking about. He didn't really know how, but he discovered that he could be anyone. Isn't that really cool? But it's okay if she doesn't like it. He'll stop. His companion noted that if he could become anyone, it would be interesting to see what else he was capable of. Jae-in said he needed to think about it. He had moments when he felt like he was fighting people, and that's why he remembered his main goal, the extinction of humanity from the face of the earth. With these words, the guy made Yun-ha freeze. He seemed like a completely different person. And suddenly, something changed abruptly in the opposite direction. The guy immediately asked what he had just said. The girl told him that he had declared the extermination of humanity. The hero didn't even give it any meaning. He didn't even understand what he had said. Yun-ha found it strange in any case. The hero understood this perfectly well. Suddenly his companion slammed her hand on the table. She then announced that they would deal with it together because of that. They remained in the cafe for some time. The girl gave the main character an agreement with the subject regarding the experiment. It contained several points. Information was provided about the national risks and rewards for the experiment. There was also a personal agreement and consent to share personal information with research staff. The hero, without even reading it, asked what it was. The girl explained that everything was written at the top, that it was the ratio. But it was not simple. It was an agreement to conduct research by mutual consent. All he had to do was sign it, right here. Nothing dangerous would happen, and he could opt out if he didn't want to participate. But the protagonist obediently took the pen and began to write something. Soon he asked if everything was okay now. The girl confirmed that she was happy that he had agreed to the experiment. Jae-in added that he would do whatever she said. Perhaps she needed something else. This made her even happier. A little while later, Min-chi returned to the cafe. Right in front of her, she saw the main character in a very bad state. He greeted her, but it was clear that something was wrong with him. This discouraged the girl. Concerned, she immediately ran up to him and began to examine him. What had happened to his smile and to him? The hero didn't answer, but just thought about what had happened to him. Earlier, Yeon had asked him to give her his hand. It would be fine. They would just take a little blood. After a while, she asked him to drink something. They also wanted to perform an endoscopy on him, so they asked him to open his mouth wide. They needed to see what was inside. After reminiscing, the hero simply said that something had happened during the night, but he didn't give any details, making the girl worry even more. Night fell. After taking a shower, Yeon-ha came out of the bathroom. She was surprised at how tired she felt, perhaps even older. Approaching the bed, she simply threw herself onto it. Thoughts about the main character's words about the destruction of humanity were spinning in her head. He didn't even realize what he had said. His appearance at that moment frightened the girl. Most likely, it was somehow connected to his past before he lost his memory. These thoughts were interrupted by a photograph standing on the table. It showed Yeon-ha herself, along with a guy standing next to her. The next day, the girl went to the research center. There, the research on Jae-in's sample had just been completed. An employee told her that the guy was young and healthy, just like any other man. The girl was surprised. Was that all he could say? Just an ordinary man? The employee didn't understand what she meant. Wasn't it human blood? Perhaps she was expecting different blood test results? Yeon-ha pretended that everything was fine and asked him not to worry, that he was a normal person. He had normal human blood. She thanked him separately and wished him luck in his work. After the conversation, the girl continued on her way through the research center. All the test results led to one conclusion. There was no mystery at all. This guy is just an ordinary person. But she remembers the opposite, such as how he glowed, or how he saved her by simply jumping down from a great height. This alarmed the girl quite a bit. She understood that human logic simply couldn't explain it all. In the end, with these thoughts in mind, she continued to pay her way down the hallway. At that time, hydras were being studied in one of the rooms. Soon, the girl found herself near one of the entrance doors. She was holding a test tube with Jae-in's blood sample, and the hydra sensed it. A research assistant noticed that something was happening. The creature, which was enclosed in a glass vessel, began trying to escape. The worker was startled by what happened and accidentally dropped the test tube. As a result, it fell to the ground. The professor and the junior researcher realized that something was very wrong. Even the main character sensed the approaching danger. The hydra they had kept locked up was now out in the open. Jimin noticed that something was wrong with the main character. That's why she asked him what had happened. But the guy didn't answer. He just looked very frightened at that moment. The professor was outraged by what the employee had done. The hydra they had been protecting so carefully was now lying on the ground. The man realized that this was really bad, so he shouted for whoever had done it to quickly bring him another tank. The junior researcher immediately ran to carry out the order. The professor urged him to hurry up. At that moment, the hydra began to move. Suddenly, the man felt something touch his body. It turned out that the small hydra had crawled up to him and touched him with its limb. It slowly moved up his fingers. The professor thought it had bitten him. The man began to watch the creature closely. Hydra reacted somehow and soon died. The professor could only confirm her death. Frightened, he turned his gaze to the other specimens. Nothing seemed to have happened to them, and they looked healthy. It was surprising since the main body was dead, but the others looked completely healthy. Suddenly, intense pain gripped the man's body. Something strange spread through his arm. It did not stop and continued to move further along the blood vessels. The junior researcher, not understanding what was happening, continued to watch. He asked the chief if everything was okay, but it was already too late. It became clear that he could not be saved. During this time, the girl continued to think about blood. Suddenly, she heard strange cries coming from the room. Yeon-ha immediately went inside and asked what was happening. The guy asked her to help him. Something was wrong with his head. He was in shock. In a panic, he begged the girl to call an ambulance immediately. She agreed, of course, but didn't understand what being in shock meant. There was clearly something strange going on with him, and it wasn't shock. At that moment, the man, or rather what had taken possession of him, sensed the presence of the main character. Then, to everyone's surprise, the man's body began to move, and this insane creature headed straight for the girl. She had no idea what was about to happen. She froze in fear, realizing that she was about to be attacked. But luckily for her, it didn't happen. Suddenly, someone stopped the creature. To everyone's surprise, it turned out to be the main character. Yeon-ha didn't expect him to be here, especially since he was very far away. Lee Jae-in was not himself. He was not like himself, because he usually smiled, but now he hit the creature with all his anger. After the guy did that, everything went quiet. Yeon-ha asked fearfully what the guy was doing there. He didn't answer and asked if she was okay. His companion was confused and didn't know what to say. Then the guy came closer to her and asked if she was hurt. Yeon-ha replied that she was fine, although she had been confused before. The professor's body continued to move for a while, but soon it just stopped. The research assistant watched what the couple was doing. He thought it was her boyfriend, but that wasn't the only thing that bothered him at that moment, because there was a small wound on his arm. The guy thought he had gotten it when the crazed professor attacked him. Suddenly, the research assistant felt someone's gaze fixed on him. It was the main character, who was looking at him with suspicion and caution. The research center employee didn't think much of it, but he felt embarrassed. Thus, the situation came to an end. The professor's body was taken away by an ambulance. Yeon-ha asked the main character how he knew she was there. The guy said he wasn't sure about it. He just had a strange feeling earlier. Then he simply suggested they go somewhere. He continued to watch the research assistant who had been injured. The professor's body was being transported by ambulance under close supervision. It seemed like he was already dead, but his hand kept moving. That's how Lee Jae-in sensed danger, especially from this man with a wound on his hands. That's why he told his companion that it wasn't safe there. Yeon-ha, confused, asked where the guy was taking her and what he was doing. She simply asked him to let her go. Soon, she even managed to break free from his tight grip. She couldn't understand what was wrong with him. What did he mean by saying it was dangerous? And why did he take her there? The guy said that it was difficult to explain everything in words, but it was really dangerous there. On top of that, he has a really bad feeling about it. He even asked if she could at least trust him this once. The girl didn't fully understand what was going on, but she couldn't seem to refuse. So after a while, they set off on their journey. On the phone, the girl asked to be excused from work, saying she wasn't feeling well. She didn't feel very good about asking for time off work like that, but the main character was very grateful to her for trusting him. Yeon-ha said that his test results had already come back and were in the glove compartment. Lee Jae-in was even interested in this. The girl said that his body was almost identical to others. Of course, this was according to the results. The guy was surprised by this. However, his cognitive abilities were completely unusual. That's precisely why she decided to trust him, even if he couldn't explain why. His sensory results were abnormally high. Also, there is something else. Suddenly, the girl asked if he liked her. Lee Jae-in replied without hesitation that it was true. He liked her. Taking this information in without any surprise, the girl asked about the others. Lee Jae-in replied that he didn't care at all. The girl thought he hated them all. After a while, the man possessed by the Hydra regained his senses and bit the doctor. The doctor tried to break free and fortunately succeeded. Suddenly, the professor came to his senses again. The doctor was stunned. He didn't understand what was wrong with his patient. The professor apologized. He didn't realize what he had done. He was now in the hospital and on a drip. Surprisingly, he even survived. Visitors were not impressed by his behavior. Soon, they simply left. The man, for his part, understood that his consciousness was slipping away and gradually disappearing. According to research, he was young and healthy, literally an ordinary man. The professor did not understand why he had gone into shock in such a case. Then the doctor suggested that he was simply nervous. The man himself understood that this was clearly not the case. He knew perfectly well why this had happened to him. The whole thing was caused by the control that the Hydra had over him. And in fact, it was causing him great anxiety. He thought about how he really needed to get back to the lab. At that time, everything was fine at the research institute. The man who had also been wounded was sitting at his workstation. Out of nowhere, a mosquito appeared in the room. It was looking for a new victim and landed on the man's body. It then dug its tiny nose into his flesh to drink his blood. The guy immediately shooed it away after feeling the pain. He didn't think much of what had happened, as he was quite sleepy. The tiny insect, having drunk his blood, flew away in an unknown direction. The main character continued talking to Jae-in. The girl noted that he had previously said that he was preparing to exterminate humanity. On top of that, she was disturbed by his abnormally low sympathy ratings. Now she was absolutely certain that something had happened to him in the past, and it happened before he lost his memory. There was nothing wrong with that. She also hated people. So maybe it was for the best. The guy said he didn't really understand what she was talking about. The girl continued to say that something was really bothering her, and of course, she was talking about him. I wonder why he likes her. Lee Jae-in thought for a while about the girl's words that he hated people. To tell the truth, he knew she was right. All people in the world are different, but at the same time, they are the same. And the source of all this is hatred. However, there is more to say about that. Earlier, Yeon-ha had asked him why he really liked her. The guy hesitated a little, then asked if she really wanted to know. The girl answered affirmatively without hesitation. The hero decided that he needed to find out everything, so he used his power against the sea. Yeon-ha just watched his strange movements in surprise. Soon she noticed that something was wrong with the water in the sea. It seemed to be moving at the will of this guy. As he used his power, his body began to transform. The girl just watched, although the situation really alarmed her. Soon the water began to move at the boy's will. Yeon-ha did not expect such a powerful force. She was simply stunned, because right in front of her appeared a large table made of water, which seemed to have been lifted by the main character. It was an incredible force, clearly not of human origin. Suddenly, the guy turned to the stunned girl, startling her. He asked if she wanted to go for a ride. The girl immediately began to wonder what he was going to take her for a ride on. However, her curiosity overcame her fear. In the end, she agreed, and soon they were riding the waves across the sea. There, the girl's fear returned, and she screamed the whole way, but it was hardly surprising, as she had never seen such power before. On the way, the hero asked her to relax because she was holding on to him too tightly. Yeon-ha screamed for him to stop immediately and take her back. She was very scared. The guy didn't really understand why she was so upset. Soon he said that she was resisting. That's why she was afraid. But there was really nothing to worry about. He was right there with her. Besides him, there was the ground, the water, and the wind. All of this actually always surrounds her. Let her just feel it with her body. This calmed her down a little. Thinking about it, she became interested in the process and began to feel it. Right in front of her, she saw a beautiful expanse of water and an equally beautiful sunset. Lee Jae-in said that he actually loved this feeling. He also asked her if she liked such feelings. The girl did not answer, but simply tried to do as he said. She stretched out her arm to feel the sea breeze enveloping her body. At that moment, her anxiety finally left her, and she smiled happily. All around her was real nature, which brought her nothing but happiness. Because of this, the girl began to shout with joy, and they continued their journey forward across the sea, cutting through the waves. All this happened until the sun set. Soon, they found themselves on a deserted island. The girl was truly happy with what had happened, so she thanked the main character for everything. Although he was simply surprised, he looked at her. Yeon-ha explained that it was the best thing that had ever happened to her. The main character was actually happy to hear all this. At that moment, the hospital professor continued to think about what had happened. He had never felt this way before. He could, of course, tell this without conducting any tests. The main body of the Hydra Ansoi had died. Although it was alive, it was inside his body and using his nervous system. The man sensed how many of them there were. At first, he sensed one person, but soon there were 5 who had been injured or had somehow come into contact with him. Thus, the number of people continued to increase, reaching a total of 247 individuals. These are people who somehow joined him, and their numbers are only beginning to grow. All of them become carriers for the Hydra, and it controls them. They send messages to the main body inside him. This message sounds like growth, but the professor cannot understand why this is happening. Yeon-ha brought up the topic of exterminating humanity again. The fact that it was possible made her a little nervous, and she believed that the guy was capable of doing it, but that in turn makes him dangerous. He is like a ticking time bomb, but she in turn is his protector. In fact, the girl doesn't know what happened to him in the past, although she thinks that her task is to prevent this from happening. The reason she decided to work in this place is simply because she wants to protect this beautiful world. The main character liked her words. He said that if she protects him, she will protect the world. She has nothing to worry about, whether his memories return or not. He has no desire to destroy the world she is trying to protect. The girl was really happy. The guy continued, saying that this time he definitely intended to protect her. While he was talking about this, the Hydra continued to order its cells to grow and kill them all, that is, humanity. Some time passed. The employees discussed the fact that everyone had also been ordered to leave today. An employee was worried, because the professor seems different after what happened in the laboratory. It was really hard to get close to him now. He was in a room with a sign saying, "Do not enter." The man had been studying what had happened to him all this time. He was interested in those carriers. Or rather, not the carriers themselves, but the people connected to them. There are already more than 280,000 of them scattered around the world. The man understood perfectly well that this was really dangerous. At the moment, he only had two options. The professor could observe all these people from afar. He did not fully understand why he had been chosen among all these people. Why him and not someone else? Perhaps it was really fate, and he was chosen to create a better world. The man enjoyed this until someone interrupted him. It was the main character who had come into his room. He finally managed to find it. He was the creature that was causing all the trouble. The professor asked indignantly who he was. Then the guy simply stated his name, but the man didn't recognize him and asked again who he was. Suddenly, he felt his consciousness sway sharply. Because of this, he grabbed his head and started coughing violently. It was exactly the same transformation of consciousness as the first time. Soon the man's body calmed down, but it was no longer him, and the hydra that had taken over his body. The creature noted that he had indeed found him. But what would he do now? Earlier, the main characters had sensed something near Yeon-ha. It was danger, in his opinion, so he minimized it. The girl was surprised, not understanding what had happened. Jae-in had simply killed a small insect. He asked her not to pay attention to it, saying everything was fine. He had killed the mosquito that was spreading blood containing hydra cells. At that moment, the guy was wondering if he should kill it. Gidara said that she felt the same way he did. Although he looked like an ordinary human, they had been born with the same purpose. But then the hydra didn't understand why he was interfering with her. Using his own strength, the hero was outraged, asking what did it mean to get in her way. It in turn puts Yeon-ha's life in danger, and the guy is just protecting her. This reason was unclear to his interlocutor. The creature explained the reason why he had behaved humbly at the time. It was because he was not strong enough. But at the moment, everything was actually different. Something happened, and the guy sensed the rapid approach of enemies. Someone was running toward the office where they were. There were a lot of creatures. It turned out to be a crowd of people who were also infected, just like the man's body. Bursting inside, all these people rushed toward the main character, considering him their enemy. Hydra revealed that humanity was his weapon. The main character quickly approached the man's body and attacked him. He didn't understand what difference it made if humanity was his weapon. This did not interfere with his plans to protect Yeon-ha. Therefore, he grabbed the main body of this hydra, and he threw it as hard as he could and it flew out the window. For the guy, all this was nothing, because his strength was nature itself. The people under the creature's control were almost upon the guy. He didn't pay much attention to them and left at the last moment. He headed after the main body that the hydra had taken control of. Grabbing the body, the guy took it and headed upward. After a while, he sent the body flying. As a result, it landed a long way away and crashed into a huge boulder. Of course, this caused serious damage to the body and the hydra itself. Jae-in was nearby and reported that everything was very strange. He thought the creature was dead, but it was quite resilient. After saying that, he couldn't think of anything better to do than continue attacking. These blows were not gentle. He intended to kill this creature. Therefore, he continued to inflict more and more damage, of course, using his natural powers. This went on until the enemy's body simply fell to the ground once again. Then the guy stopped, hoping that was enough. But despite everything that had taken over the body, the man continued to rise. This was even when the human body was already almost at its limit. And this creature could move, because its regeneration was astonishing. The body that had just been on the brink of death regenerated very quickly. Jae-in was amazed and angry at the same time. He couldn't understand when this creature would finally die. The guy never got an answer, so they sat there for a while. Soon, the guy grabbed his companion by the throat. He simply asked him to finally tell him how to kill it. The Hydra, which had taken over the professor's body, didn't answer, but tried to resist. Hydra realized that, unfortunately, it couldn't escape from the guy's cage. He continued to speak, but it was an incomprehensible language. The creature was very upset by what was happening. Earlier, this guy had claimed that nature was his main weapon. Well, that's hardly the case. His body is just a container used by nature. The Hydra was different from him. It was completely different. Jae-in soon heard something strange. At that moment, the hydraulic press was calling insects to itself. All control was in his hands. The second hand also summoned the other creatures. The main character saw various creatures, also under the control of the Hydra, rushing straight toward him from the forest. This creature believed itself to be the supreme being. Despite the danger of the situation, Jae-in did not lose his composure, but only smiled. He then used his power once again, causing the ground to crack. The Hydra did not understand what was happening. Soon, the man in whom it was located flew into the air. The creatures she recognized were attacked by an earthquake. The main character, a moment later, once again rushed into the sky. He attacked the body of the man in which the Hydra was currently located. This time the wound was much more serious. Literally the entire side, along with the organs and everything else, was destroyed. It seemed that no living thing could defend itself or survive such a wound. Because of what had happened, the man's body fell to the ground. The main character quickly got close, deciding to make sure he finished what he started. The Hydra, however, was still alive. It called the guy an idiot for doing this. Jae-in then said that it was really over. The enemy realized that it would be very difficult to defeat him. He was weak and worthless. This creature couldn't understand how to defeat such a monster as this guy. Suddenly, she remembered what had happened a few days earlier. At that moment, this man appeared to protect someone dear to him. The creature rejoiced, that's what it was. So this monster did have a weak spot after all, and it was this girl. The Hydra inside the man began to laugh. She said that it was actually regrettable. It's about this man, it's funny, but he chose the wrong direction. He should have made it much easier. The main character soon heard many crows, so he had to pay attention to them, and he saw a small flock heading toward him. Jae-in thought this was their last trick and prepared to defend himself. But to his surprise, the crows flying toward him simply flew past. They did not attack him, but the main body of the Hydra inside the man. These crows were trying to tear him apart. The main character realized that this creature wanted to do something. Soon, he saw that in a matter of moments, the man's body was in critical condition. And now, it was not regenerating. Having done their job, the crows that had succumbed to the influence simply flew away. Jae-in actually understood what had happened. The Hydra had moved, and that annoyed him greatly. Suddenly, he heard the professor's real voice. He was still alive and had regained consciousness. He reported what had happened and attracted the young man's attention. Then he turned to him, saying he didn't know who he was, but he had a request. The man wanted him to go to the research center and find his computer. The main character didn't even listen to him. He ran off and said he was busy. The professor, in turn, continued to insist about his computer. There is a folder there that can be opened. Those were his last words before he finally died. After a while, the crows appeared in the city, heading toward a single point. Yeon-ha was with her friend in a cafe. She noted that for some reason there were no customers today. Jimin was upset by this. Of course, it was because Jae-in didn't come to work very often, and to her great distress, she couldn't even fire him. Did Yeon-ha know what had suddenly happened to him? The girl pretended to think about it. Then her friend asked if it wasn't because of her. They had been together for some time, and she already suspected something. Yeon-ha wanted to respond, but suddenly, her friend's hand reached for her mouth and covered it. The girl didn't even realize what she had done, so she immediately removed her hand and said that her hand had moved on its own. At that moment, she felt a sharp pain in her head, so she grabbed her head in an attempt to suppress the pain. Something strange formed on her neck. Yeon-ha asked in surprise if she was okay. Her friend simply told her to run away. The girl was confused. What was she talking about? What had happened to her? She must be in a lot of pain. Jimin, in turn, shouted for her to run away quickly. This caught Yeon-ha off guard, and she didn't know what to do. At that moment, there was a noise outside. The girl paid attention to it and saw a group of frantic people trying to break into the building. They managed to break through the glass barriers quite quickly and easily. Yeon-ha was naturally frightened, not understanding what was happening. She asked what was wrong with them. Were they some kind of crazy group or something? Suddenly, she realized that something was wrong with her friend as well. Jimin, who was nearby, attacked her. At that moment, the main character rushed to the scene. He was able to break through the possessed crowd fairly easily. This brought him closer to his former boss. He had to hit her, but he apologized for it. The girl saw what had happened to her friend. She simply couldn't believe it. The guy repeated that he was very sorry and prepared to leave her. Then he sent the girl flying straight into the crowd of people. Yeon-ha simply couldn't believe that this was really happening. Earlier, Jimin suggested that the main character try something. The guy didn't understand what it was. The girl explained that it was a test similar to the Myers-Briggs type indicator. It is an introspective questionnaire that reveals various psychological preferences, including how people perceive the world and make decisions. I wonder what his result will be. The guy agreed, and it turned out that he was an introvert who was sensitive, thoughtful, and perceptive. At that moment, breaking news came out. Many people in many countries around the world were simultaneously experiencing symptoms of nervous system disorders. The government is treating it as a contagious disease and investigating the cause of the outbreak. Additional news has just come in. A common symptom among some patients with mild symptoms is that they see clear images and hear messages, like signals in their heads. The main character is a young Korean woman with long hair. The message says that they need to scratch themselves, or bite. Why did this phenomenon appear? No one knows, because the cause of the disease has not yet been found. But everyone is asked to be careful and not to fall under its influence. The first symptoms include mild muscle spasms. It starts with the fingers. But at some point, the entire body becomes uncontrollable. The World Health Organization has named this disease a wave. Some guys went on a live stream. They greeted their viewers. The host said that his friend was next to him, and he was currently experiencing a wave. He asked the infected person to show his hand. The guy did so, and it seemed like he was fine. But suddenly his hands started twitching involuntarily. The host was delighted and asked the audience if everyone had seen it. Then he asked the patient what it felt like. The patient thought for a moment and replied that he wasn't moving it. He thought that someone was controlling it. The host said that this was not fake, that it was all real. He wouldn't believe it if it were anyone else. But this friend of his was definitely not lying. Suddenly, the guy noticed that the sick man was starting to behave strangely. He didn't understand what his friend was doing. It really seemed fake. But the man didn't answer him. Then he opened the window and started climbing out. A moment later, he jumped out of the window. The guy couldn't believe it. He was scared for his friend, thinking he had simply fallen to his death. But what he saw made him freeze. His friend, who had fallen from at least the 5th floor, was simply tired and started running. And with him was a whole crowd of similarly obsessed people. It seemed like some kind of madness and not something that was actually happening. Meanwhile, the infected continued to attack Yeon-ha. Lee Jae-in couldn't let that happen, so he continued to fight, protecting the girl. He understood that they were all focused on Yeon-ha. Of course, this was the work of the main body of the Hydra. The guy immediately used his strength. All he could do was fight them. Just as he was about to fight, the girl stopped him. She told him he shouldn't do it. The main character couldn't resist her, so he agreed to attack. The crowd of crazed people continued to attack them, so something had to be done. In the end, after some time, the guy ran through the city with the girl on his shoulders. Although they managed to escape from the cafe, the crowd of crazed people continued to attack them. Then the main character asked Yeon-ha to hold on as tightly as possible. After that, he used his strength to climb onto the nearest building, and in this way, he managed to climb up quite quickly. The crazed people were stunned, as they couldn't climb up so quickly. The girl watched in horror. She didn't understand what was happening. Lee Jae-in explained that it was all because of her boss, the manager inside. Yeon-ha simply couldn't believe it. Had he really killed her boss? The guy sadly replied that he did it because he had no other choice. She should just look down and see all those people there. His companion didn't care. She said that none of it mattered. How could it possibly kill someone? This made the guy pause. Then she asked him if it really meant nothing to him. The main character didn't answer, he just kept looking at the girl. In the end, everything became clear. It was a really bitter truth. Yeon-ha turned around and was about to leave. The guy tried to stop her. She explained that if this situation was really caused by the manager, then the key to solving it must be at the research institute. That was why she had to go back. The hero agreed. He said he would take her there and tried to take her hand. But this time, Yeon-ha immediately pushed him away. The main character was confused by her behavior. He didn't understand what was wrong. The girl explained that she simply didn't understand him, and she was going to just go alone. What had happened made the guy think about it all. Vague memories of his mother came to his mind. She had said that she was doing everything to protect him. While he was lost in thought, the girl continued walking forward. When she got to the door, she heard a knock. Soon the door was kicked in by someone. Of course, it was the possessed, who were trying with all their might to get to her. Yeon-ha couldn't do anything. She hadn't expected him to show up so quickly. However, this possessed individual was not destined to reach her, because the main character had already come to her defense. He repeated the phrase that she couldn't understand him. The guy could explain it by saying that she had simply become the most important thing to him. As for those who were trying to harm her, he didn't care if they died. No matter what she says, he will continue to protect her. At that moment, he was attacked by those obsessed men. The girl screamed for him to be careful and not to do it. But the main character didn't care at all. He used the power of an electric eel on them. Thanks to this, the possessed ones who attacked him were immobilized. Lee Jae-in turned to the girl and said he would protect her. At that moment, a guy was watching what was happening from the roof of a nearby building. He wasn't just watching, he was also filming it on his phone. He could see everything that was happening and was also broadcasting it live. This guy is crazy. I wonder if all the viewers saw it. People were going crazy in the comments. Some thought it was computer graphics or that he was filming a movie. At that moment, there were over 200,000 people watching his live stream. A conference was held shortly after. The man said that it was more like the recent wave of muscle diseases. All of this was true, although there had been no such symptoms before. The boss was outraged by what was happening and asked if they knew why it had happened. The subordinate apologized, but they really didn't know anything. A girl joined the conversation, stating that they were looking for the first patients who had arrived that morning. She asked the chief to just wait a little longer. His head was already spinning at that point. He didn't know what to say to the people. Suddenly, someone burst in and addressed the prime minister. He asked indignantly what was going on. He had an important meeting on countermeasures. Couldn't he see that? The man who arrived apologized, but it was too important. He thought he should take a look at it immediately. After that, he began to show what was critically important on the tablet. A bright flash of electricity streaked across the roof of the building. It was the main character using his power. He was trying to hold back the crowd of crazed people. It worked, but they didn't actually freeze in place. Lee Jae-in realized that even knocking them unconscious would be useless. It was as if someone was controlling them. Suddenly, he felt a gaze on him and noticed the guy on the roof. However, he wasn't even interested in that guy, but in the one behind him. Of course, it was that raven, or rather the Hydra that had possessed him. The guy decided to act immediately when he found out where his enemy was. He grabbed a small piece of earth that could hit his target. Then, with all the strength he had, he threw it at his enemy. The projectile he had just created flew very quickly and far. It pierced the air, rushing toward its target as fast as it could. In the end, the projectile reached its target, and an explosion occurred. Those possessed at that moment stopped moving. The main character turned his attention to them, waiting for them to come to their senses. But this was not to be. Soon he felt that someone was moving again. All the possessed, who had just been motionless, began to move again, and the raven controlling them simply flew up into the sky. The girl shouted to Jae-in to look back quickly, that he was being attacked, but the guy just walked closer to her. He asked her not to worry. The guy wasn't going to do anything else she didn't like. He offered to go with her and promised to protect her. Yeon-ha was confused, as she hadn't expected such a request. The main character couldn't wait for her answer, so he picked her up. He then told her to hold on tight, as he was going to move. The guy simply jumped down after saying that. At that moment, the streamer continued filming the live broadcast. Many viewers around the world saw what was happening. They saw a crazy guy holding a girl in his arms and jumping down from a crowd of crazed people. The Prime Minister was also among those watching the broadcast. He couldn't understand what was happening. Could it be some kind of movie? This can't be happening for real. A subordinate said that he didn't believe it at first either, but according to CCTV footage, it was real, and it was happening right now. The high-ranking official couldn't believe it. The man confirmed that the video was spreading quickly, and that more and more people were watching it now. The Prime Minister looked again to make sure. He saw that the search results were indeed dominated by the superhuman. Some people thought it was a secret weapon of the government. The video was even being broadcast on large screens, and many people could see it. People in transportation, at home, or wherever they were watching it all. Like most people, they couldn't believe that this was really happening. Of course, the Minister of Defense couldn't help but notice the situation. He thought this guy was just a monster. At that moment, while many people were watching, the guy just kept killing. This went on until he saw a flock of crows. It's terrible. There's no end to them. But in that case, he knew what he had to do. Suddenly, he saw a crow land right next to him. He immediately used his power to defend himself against the creature. The girl asked if something was wrong. Jae-in looked at her and discovered a wound on her body. He was terrified, wondering how this could have happened. A report was being given at the main special service agency of the Republic of Korea. The investigation revealed that the wave was spreading from a research laboratory. They were studying a rare species of Hydra called the Controller. This was linked to the symptoms of the wave. The chief asked what Controller meant. It turned out that they had a file found on the research team's computer. The guy suggested taking a look at it. The man was interested, so he immediately opened the flash drive. And there he saw a folder labeled with the letter A. The frantic people continued their movement. But soon, out of nowhere, they became normal and regained consciousness. Among them, of course, was Chim Min, who, fortunately, survived. Young-ha noticed what had happened. They all stopped abruptly. It seemed that everyone had come to their senses and did not understand what was happening. The main character was actually aware of what had happened. This happened because the manager's goal had been achieved. A little while later, the guy and the girl found themselves on the roof of the building. Jae-in told her that she had been infected through the wound. The girl was skeptical about this, as it was not poison. So, would restricting her blood flow really work? The hero himself realized that it was all useless, but there was nothing he could do. In the end, he said there was another way. The girl was intrigued and asked what it was. The guy said without hesitation that it was necessary to cut off his arm. The girl was frightened and told him to stop talking nonsense. The hero, in turn, continued to insist that there was no time and suggested doing it quickly. At that moment, the head of the Republic of Korea's Special Services was watching the video. It was so unexpected that he couldn't believe it. The date was October 12th. The recording shows the face of a professor from a research institute. The man described how the main body of the manager bit his finger and died. After that, he did not lose his mind. After checking the CCTV footage, he lost his mind and tried to bite researcher Yeon-ha. Perhaps the manager is the cause. Envy of October 14th. Sometimes symptoms appear, such as loss of self-control and attempts to scratch or bite other people. But if he concentrates and tries not to give in, he can restrain himself. So far, the man has managed to do all this. October 21st. The results of the manager's cell check were found inside the body. The controller is not dead. Like a parasite, he is keeping the man as his host. The fragment's feelings are connected to the man himself, and the main body is constantly trying to increase its numbers. The most frightening and interesting thing is that the processor can sense all individuals. October 26th. By his own will, the man can control other fragments. In just a few days, he was able to control not only people, but also animals and insects. He, in turn, is controlled by the controller. Or does he control the controller? there is still no clear distinction. Entry for December 31st. The reason why the man first came to the research institute. It was to make the world a better place. Uncontrolled growth and the various environmental problems associated with it would lead to the extinction of all humanity. The professor truly understood this. It happened to him, and for some reason it was him. In fact, he had always hoped that thanks to this ability, he would be able to create a real better world. The main character and Yeon-ha continued on their way. They came to the conclusion that since the cells had already entered the girl's body, cutting off her arm would be useless. They must have spread throughout her body long ago. The girl asked the guy not to worry too much. She was sure that all the clues were at the research institute. Although she wasn't 100% sure, it was still just a guess. The professor wrote that if someone was looking at this folder, it meant that he had already failed. If that was the case, then the manager had to be eliminated. If this force has any evil intent, humanity will be destroyed in an instant. There was only one way to eliminate the controller. The carrier had to be killed. The head of the National Special Services accepted this information as it was. Fortunately, this method is simple. The hero and the girl quickly arrived at the research institute. But there they saw something strange. There were soldiers blocking their way and restoring order. A soldier approached their car and said that visits were currently restricted. He didn't understand how they had even gotten there. The girl explained who she was, that she was from research group number 2. She needed to enter the research institute immediately. Soon, the subordinates reported to the chief that the researcher, whose body had been infiltrated by cells from the main body of the controller, and the man who had been on the video near the research institute, were now there. They said that the girl had regained consciousness. The boss realized that he had to take matters into his own hands, so he ordered his people to act. The girl still didn't understand what was happening. A man in a suit approached them. He appeared to be one of the leaders there. He said that this guy was staying here, pointing to the main character, and Yeon-ha should go inside with them. The girl was a little confused and needed to check something in the laboratory first. The authority figure said that, first of all, they needed to cooperate. Then a soldier approached Yeon-ha and asked him to follow him. Jae-in was indignant that he was doing this. Now was clearly not the time for this. At that moment, the guy saw the soldiers start to stir. They were ready to attack. The representative of the authorities calmly repeated that they should follow him. The main character became angry and used his power. What should he do if he doesn't want to do that? The national security officer was frightened and told the soldiers to prepare for an attack. They immediately took aim and held the guy at gunpoint. But he didn't order them to attack right away. He asked for cooperation. The main character also did not attack. He looked at all these people. The guy saw the guns pointed at him. And immediately, a memory from the past came flooding back to him. These memories were not pleasant, so he became angry and shouted at them to put their weapons away. The representative of the authorities shouted again that if he refused, they would have no choice but to open fire. The guy just repeated that he could do it. He was about to attack again, but the girl stopped him. Jae-in looked at her and realized that she didn't want him to fight at all. The girl also indicated this with a gesture. Then the main character had no choice but to agree with her. Although he wasn't particularly happy about it. But he didn't resist any further and even lowered his hands. The authorities breathed a sigh of relief and then told them to be escorted away. The girl and the guy held each other's hands because they had to go in different directions. After a while, they were all still at the research institute. Inside the building, Yeon-ha was handcuffed. She was surprised by this and didn't understand why they were needed. They must know the reason. The employee said that strangely, the girl had been infected by the manager for security reasons. At that moment, another worker prepared an injection. They were about to begin the procedure. The main character was in a completely different room at that time. They also handcuffed him. They didn't even realize that he could easily overpower them. The guy just watched them until he saw someone leave his room. It turned out that this person was the Republic's defense minister. The man introduced himself as Kim Song-yong, head of national defense. Jae-in's first question was, "What is this room?" His companion told him that a video of Jae-in had gone viral around the world that day. Therefore, he asked if he could explain what was going on. The hero said he knew nothing. He then asked where this man had taken Yeon-ha. The man did not respond at first. Then he said that his father had been an employee of the National Security Agency. He died when he was still a child. The main character was busy and continued to show no interest. He repeated his question again. Where did this man take the girl? The defense minister continued to say that his father had left behind a journal of his investigations, which he had looked at. It was a story about a mysterious creature, and his father had died while investigating its existence. It turned out that this was the same inspector who had been pursuing the main character throughout his childhood. The Minister of Defense called this creature a monster. Suddenly, someone entered the room, and the young man noticed it. It was a subordinate asking permission to enter. Yeon-ha's test results show that she is positive. Upon hearing this information, Kim noted that the guy had asked why they had taken the girl away. That's how they found out about the measures taken against the manager. The main character became interested. Could it be true? So there is a way after all? The defense minister said it was true. The carrier, whose body had been possessed by the managers, must be killed. Jae-in immediately stood up and destroyed the handcuffs that bound him. The defense minister had anticipated that this situation would arise. The young man asked if he had heard correctly. The man simply repeated that it was necessary to save the world. Jae-in didn't even listen to him and almost destroyed the bulletproof glass. The defense minister explained that the glass was bulletproof. The guy was surprised. He didn't expect that. He actually thought it wouldn't break. He simply suggested continuing the conversation. The magazine investigation has a photo of the monster from that time. Looking at the age of this guy, he thought it was impossible, but he looks very much like that little boy. This man actually had a photo of the main character from his childhood. At that time, he was with his mother. Jae-in remembered the situation from his childhood. He asked his mother, then fought every day, and she would tell him that she was doing it to protect him. Childhood memories, and how his mother protected him in his mind. These were all warm memories from their peaceful life together, and right up until the end of his mother's life. All of this was triggered by just one photograph, which brought back all the memories. Jae-in, remembering everything that had happened, began to cry again. The head of national security arrived at the chief's office. He asked him to sign something. It was information about a state of emergency. The document stated that the infected person must be eliminated. The man read it and realized that the researcher had to be killed. Was there really no other way out? His interlocutor stated that there really wasn't. They did not yet fully understand the danger posed by the manager. Therefore, this risk had to be eliminated as soon as possible. He understood his anxiety perfectly, the anxiety of humanity, and that he was the only one left. If a choice had to be made between them, it seemed obvious. In the end, the president agreed. It turns out that this sacrifice is for the sake of future generations. He was aware of what this could lead to. Unfortunately, the right words cannot change anything. After these words, his order was signed. The atmosphere at the research institute was tense. A subordinate led the team leader to the commander. He informed him that the order that had been given recently had just been approved. The commander understood. He said that was fine. In fact, he had expected this, but it was still a shock. The defense minister was a little confused. He asked what was going on. Why had the man in front of him suddenly started crying? The main character just kept looking at the photo. He remembered his mother again at the moment when he was just born. He also remembered all the wonderful memories he had shared with her. Her request, which he had decided to fulfill at the very end. In the end, the protagonist said that he remembered everything. That is why people have to die. Kim immediately felt the pressure and the atmosphere changed dramatically. Jae-in remembered a situation from his childhood when he was standing in front of an inspector. So this man is the son of the one who died back then. It turns out that he brought him here out of revenge. Kim objected, saying it had been a long time ago and a lot of time had passed. He was a child and couldn't even remember his father's face. Now he was only thinking about national security. The young man didn't care at all. He wants to take the photo for himself. If he gives it to him, he won't kill him now. Kim objected that he didn't want to do that. Then an awkward silence hung between them. After that, the main character simply raised his hand. And then, with one very light touch, he destroyed the bulletproof glass. Of course, it wasn't just the glass that was destroyed, but also the building's exterior. Jae-in asked the man to stand up, as he did not feel any hatred toward him. If he was really someone's son, then who had died? He felt uncomfortable. Kim said that although he didn't remember, growing up without a father was an unpleasant feeling. Jae-in realized that all this was just empty talk. He then asked how many lives he thought would be lost. The hero had actually lost many people because of their relatives. He had suffered greatly. On top of that, he had gone through tens of millions of deaths, and because of this man's father, he had lost his entire world. Jae-in dared to say so to speak. That was how he felt about this man. The man lost his voice, and the tension between them grew stronger and stronger. At that moment, the hero was ready to kill the man sitting in front of him. Suddenly, Kim said he didn't understand what he was talking about. But if he didn't give him the photo, he would die right then and there. So he agreed without question to hand over the photo. The guy said that he had really thought it through. The main character stood up, preparing to leave. The defense minister asked if he was really going after the girl. A silent minute passed after the guy said that it was just the death of one person. It seemed to him that she no longer mattered. Now he was not the same guy he used to be. The stunned soldiers looked at the road that had formed in the center after the guy's blow. Soon they saw a silhouette emerging from the darkness. Of course, several people had been injured in the explosion, and blood was scattered everywhere. At that moment, the hero simply stepped forward. The people present couldn't believe what was happening. One of the subordinates shouted to the captain, hoping he was okay. The guy asked if he was okay. At first, the minister did not answer. After meeting this creature, who was the main character, his hands were shaking. When he had recovered somewhat, he ordered that the jindo be raised immediately. His subordinate reported that they currently had 2 jindo. The man replied that it didn't matter. They had to raise it. We are talking about 1 Jindo, which is maximum readiness. At that time, a conversation took place at the research institute. Yong-ha was told what needed to be done to stop the threat from the manager. She had to die. For her, this was simply unbelievable news. The government representative only confirmed that the proposal had been approved by the president himself. The man apologized for the urgency, but they had to do it right away. The girl asked him to wait a second. She was still thinking about it. The interlocutor stated that her life would be worth the exchange of the entire world. It's truly unfortunate, but please let her understand that this is an unavoidable situation. Yonha was very sad and scared to hear all this. She couldn't do anything about it really, and soon she just asked how she was supposed to die. She was told that it was a process of euthanasia. She would fall asleep painlessly, and everything would be all right. A girl ran through the devastated city. It was Jae-in, confused and unable to comprehend the situation. Suddenly, the girl noticed that Jae-in was in front of her. She was delighted to find him and tried to speak to him. The girl didn't understand where he had been all this time. She had already searched for him everywhere. Wasn't he with Yonha, where she was now? She hadn't answered her calls all night. At that moment, the girl's attention was drawn to a noise. It wasn't coming from ordinary vehicles, but from some kind of caterpillar tracks. What the girl saw before her eyes was beyond her comprehension. There was a large amount of military equipment and soldiers. All the soldiers were aimed at the main character. Tanks also aimed their barrels at him. Even helicopters were involved in the military operation. Jae-in asked in horror what it all meant. At that moment, the girl was holding a phone in her hands, with a keychain hanging from it. Jae-in became curious and looked at it. The keychain held a cute photo of Jae-in, Yonha, and the guy himself. Yonha should have already been killed at that moment. But in the end, everything went completely wrong. The girl who was supposed to carry out the order was killed by the authorities. Yonha didn't understand what was happening. She was confused. At that moment, she was being controlled by the controller, but only part of her body. The hero only felt that he was uncomfortable. At that moment, one of the captains ordered his men to open fire. After that, tanks and weapons began to fire. The girl tried to take the guy away immediately because they were shooting at him, but she couldn't do anything because he stood there and only thought that he felt uncomfortable. At that moment, Jae-in was thinking about pleasant memories with this girl. He also thought about his conversation with the defense minister. The carrier whose body had been taken over had to be killed. That carrier was Yonha, and she had to die. After the tank fired at the target outside, an explosion occurred. The commander ordered to cease fire and wait. Everyone needed to prepare. The smoke and dust that rose after the impact began to gradually subside. The main character remained standing in the same spot. For the military, this was an unbelievable sight, a mere monster. It turned out that the main character had blocked the shot with a rock he had picked up. He kept thinking about how uncomfortable he was. Despite the fact that he didn't care about anything, he still protected Jae-in. Soon, the main character turned to the girl. He simply asked if she wanted to see Yonha. She didn't understand why he was uncomfortable. Was it because they looked alike? Although he didn't think so. Was this girl different from his mother? But then he didn't understand why he wanted to protect her. He repeated the same question to his companion. But when he heard silence, he didn't understand why she was silent. Was she hurt? He saw that the girl was afraid of him. She had never seen his strength before, and didn't understand what was happening. The soldiers also forced him, and he didn't understand what was happening. It turned out that even the tank shot had not seriously wounded the young man. The hero told the girl that these people were trying to kill him and Yonha. This was being done to save as many lives as possible. I wonder what the girl herself thinks about this. Is it right or not? She was very confused and only said that she didn't know anything that was happening. She also couldn't understand what he was talking about. At the moment, she is just very scared. The military decided to take action, and the commander ordered his men to take aim again. The tank began to move, aiming at its previous target. The main character realized that these people were going to attack her again. The commander shouted at his subordinates to fire, but he didn't even have time to finish his sentence before someone covered his mouth. It turned out that the main character had rushed up to him and covered his mouth. The girl couldn't believe what she was seeing. She just stared. Jae-in said that people often talk about sacrifice for the common good. He finds this statement funny. Sacrifice is a person's own choice, not what others call it. In the end, the logic of the strong devours the weak. It's just that the stronger group tramples on the rights of the minority. The right to decide always belongs to the strong, and the main character actually made his decision long ago. After these words, he immediately killed the man he was holding in his hand. The girl just watched from afar as the guy killed others. Blood spurted everywhere, and the man's head was completely destroyed. The main character felt a familiar sensation in his hand. It was like the time he killed those people who were building on the mountain. He had already taken many human lives, and every single person in this world would feel his wrath. He decided to do it, but he didn't understand why he should save her, that is, Yonha. Why did he need to do this? He just felt contagious. He didn't want Jae-in to look at him like that. The guy realized that this was becoming dangerous for him, and that he had to let it all go. He was ready to destroy all the soldiers standing before him in shock. Literally, a single wave of his hand was enough to destroy them all. The guy thought he needed to deal with all this as soon as possible. An explosion occurred where he was. The girl continued to watch what was happening, unable to believe her eyes. A helicopter carrying reporters quickly began circling over the scene. The anchor asked if it was a horrific scene. The man in the mysterious video was mercilessly killing their soldiers. They couldn't stand up to him, and their troops were ruthlessly slaughtered. There was complete chaos. The government sent in the police to deal with this dangerous man. No one knows who he is, but he is incredibly strong. A group of soldiers were actually scattered throughout the city. Jae-in was able to learn the human language. In addition, he learned human thoughts and came to understand the human world. They say that man is the measure of all things. People kill various creatures, whether for hunting or simply for their own pleasure. They eat a lot and raise animals just to satisfy their hunger. Various products and decorations are worthless. They are merely adornments. But to do this, it is necessary to enslave or kill animals. The main character actually experiences all of this existence. He continued to mercilessly kill the soldiers who attacked him. Jae is impartial, he still hates their arrogance. The helicopter continued to circle over the scene. Since the guy was tired of him, he threw a rock at him, and with that, he destroyed it quite easily. After the incident, a fragment flew toward the girl. For her, the situation was truly dangerous. Despite his lack of talent, the main characters protected her. He also, in fact, recognized the human heart. It was like his mother, the girl, and the man who treated him with kindness. One of the soldiers was still alive and started shooting at the guy. But the main character didn't care about the shots at all. He only felt uncomfortable, and that confused him.